Hello, everyone. Welcome
Woo!
to episode 6, Chat About the Music. What am I talking about? We're going to talk about Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 6, Stranger from a... Nope, from the desert comes a stranger. The music and sound of this episode. James,
Xanthe, well
You got
prepared.
this.
Well prepared.
I think someone else should do the intro next week. Let's do a little bit of a warm up. First of all, how is everyone? Let's see. Let me pull up the chat. Blue Pig already has an excuse for not paying attention to music this time. I was too distracted by everything else.
Oh,
Yeah.
fair.
Let's go around to the three of us and
Yeah.
say like 3 things that we really loved and 3 things that we want to make sure to talk about that we are not so sure that we liked.
Are you talking about musically or the episode in general?
The music and sound of the episode.
Okay. So specifically you want to stay to music and sound.
You can mix it up. You can
You know,
mix it
we go off. On
up. You can mix it. Yeah.
things.
Okay.
Justin, you first.
Oh, 3 things. Well,
Well, let's all do things that we liked first. Actually.
okay. No, I've got this. I've got this. Three things that I liked a lot. Nostalgia is a theme for one. Nostalgia. I liked specifically, which I hope we talk about in a little bit, the building robots music. The robots, the droids that were building the temple. I liked that music. I thought that was very cool. And the Force sound design I liked a lot, and I want to as well.
All right. We'll have to make sure to talk about those. What about you, James? Things that you liked.
Okay. Things that I liked about this episode. I would say Matthew Bob has a funny comment here. So things I like about this episode, it's more like it's not necessarily just this episode, but it's like it's starting to like really crystallize in this episode, which is I'm starting to like that I'm starting to see a bigger picture of what's going on in the galaxy with different players happening simultaneously. And I know they've promised this idea of like making an expansive narrative that includes multiple different characters with multiple interests, etc. Kind of like the Clone Wars, where you have lots of different people with different, horses in the race, right? I'm starting to see that more. You're starting to see like who's connected to the Syndicate. You're starting to see what's going on with Luke. Starting to see how Ahsoka's playing into some things as well. It's not fully fleshed out yet. They still need to flesh a lot of it out. So part of what I like is just I like that it's starting to pull a lot of stuff together within some of their narratives. So that's what I liked about this ep. I also really enjoyed the environment.
Your audio kind of is cutting out.
Maybe this is better. I don't know.
Yeah, this is good.
Okay. So I also like I just like the environment of Luke's training planet. I thought it was beautiful. And the whole design of that area. I'm not sure if that's on location or if that's in the volume, but either way, it's gorgeous. And then let's see, what else didn't Justin? I like just to see some good old, just like mafioso blowing up the bar to send a message. I like to just now to see a little bit of that cat and mouse game and stuff going on between the crime bosses. That's what I've wanted to see all season. I've wanted to see just like hey, boom, and just like almost you don't really see you don't really know who did it or whatever. It's like almost like It's like leaving a little message like you would see in like The Godfather, The Sopranos, or something. So I really liked that moment when they blew up the bar. And I was like very like audibly like was like yes,
Uh,
yes, we're getting some
and I didn't notice.
yeah, you didn't know that that's what happened. Hilariously.
It's just just explosion.
Right. But yeah, I really like that moment. To me, that's what this show should have been doing all along, in terms of it being, if it was significantly a Boba Fett like crime turf war, like we should be seeing stuff like that. We should be seeing like the horse guy wakes up with the horse head in his bed.
The
And-
bantha
and-
head.
it would be the Fathier head, right?
The
Oh
father
my
head and
God.
his- Aw.
What if?
But that's what we should have been seeing in my eyes. Like that's what I kind of thought the show might have been, is like kind of like Godfather of The Sopranos, and it
Mhm.
really delivered on that front until this episode in some ways. So
Cool. Well,
Cool.
that's
Just-
good.
I like a lot about this episode, but those are three.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to
There's
talk.
a lot in this up. Yeah.
So, if you're in the chat, we're going around and we're just like naming right off the bat some of the things that we really liked about this episode, whether or not they're related to music and sound. So you can feel free to add things in the chat. I see a comment from Matthew. This episode took Boba Fett back to his roots. He stands around looking cool for a few minutes and says a handful of lines. Okay, so now I'll share the things that I really loved from this episode. One was also the ant droids. I love the sound of them. I mean, the
Yeah.
whole design of them. But I was very, very delighted by that entire
Yeah.
design. I love those ants, or whatever,
really
ant
cool.
droids. Very cool, very
Yeah.
cool.
Score in that moment was really. I really enjoyed that score.
Yeah.
That whole scene too.
And then I also liked I like the Marshall's music, which is from Mandalorian, but we did hear it at the beginning, and I thought it's interesting. It weaves so seamlessly into Mando and Boba's
Yeah.
themes. So it's like they're all part of the same universe. And then I also really liked I liked the force frogs. I liked the ribbit
Yeah.
of the frogs.
That's cool.
So yeah, I think those were probably my favorite. Those are probably the things that I liked the most from the episode.
I really like the Marshall's theme, and I like it's very bluesy
Yeah.
to my ears. Like especially once I put it on, like or
I'm playing the chords. Well,
Country
Yeah.
western blues kind of
and then
a
it
thing.
Picardy's
going
at the
on.
end.
Yeah. It should have been your guitar. the
You
whole
know,
time.
And it is on guitar when we see when we hear it for the first time during the Marshall's story, right? In
Mandalorian.
Mandalorian season or chapter 9, right? And so it's like that's kind of his instrument in some ways. The Marshall has it, and that's kind of we start. Blue Pix is where that's from. So this is the Marshall's theme that we hear in the beginning, where when he really has his triumphant moment over the Pikes. That's when it really kicks in. And when the first time we hear it ever in the show is in chapter 9, when he has
In
his,
Mandalorian.
in the Mandalorian, yeah. So yeah, it's a cool theme. I like it.
Yeah, me too. I didn't really, I didn't recognize it as a theme from The Mandalorian. I thought it was I honestly just thought it was like one of the same themes, but just with like a different note, and which it kind of is, but that's how all the themes kind of are. Like the note that threw me off was the dee-dee-dee, where it skips dee-dee-dee, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, that itself is something different, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's a satisfying
Oh,
chord progression. Dee dee. It's the, minor 1 to the 6th. Dee 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 dee. Dee dee
Oh, yeah.
dee 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 dee. Dee 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 dee.
Oh, A major, right?
Dee dee. Yeah. I thought I only heard the A major at the end. Before it was more like an open A, I think.
Yeah, they haven't really committed to that being a major.
Until the
Yeah.
end when we have to.
But if you're a Nirvana fan, then all the chords are major. Like,
Yeah,
it's like an
everything is
implied
major.
major chord on everything, even if it's a fifth, And that's kind of what this reminds me. It's like grunge. It's like a grunge progression, Just want Eddie
Be a
Vedder.
Pearl Jam song. Yeah.
Yeah, I want Eddie Vedder just like. So.
I think I think when we heard it with strings in this episode, I feel like the melody lent itself, I think it lends itself really well to various orchestrations. I thought it was like really beautiful with the string melody.
Yeah, I really like how musically connected these two shows have been together.
Yeah,
At least in these last couple episodes.
Especially
Yeah.
these last couple episodes.
Yeah.
That's definitely for sure.
Not
And
so much.
And speaking about that being connected, or at least these episodes being connected and stuff like that, that theme goes right into Boba Fett's opening title, right?
I was just gonna say that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's different because you've got the little plucks, the ding, 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 ding. And, the orchestration's different, isn't it?
I think the opening title music it's usually different than the end credits music, right?
Right, but it's have they done this every
No.
single episode? No, it's just the last two where they've done a
Last two
little
where they
something different in the beginning. I almost wish they would have done that the whole series.
Oh
Just,
yeah.
like
We've
based
heard it
on the
before.
opening scene or the mood or the theme of the episode.
Yeah, they added like a mandolin or a guitar like into the main theme.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
round.
it's
I'm
more like
saying,
and they switch a note instead of going down, they go up. It's like
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah, I like that. We hear that like I think in maybe chapter 1, or we hear it during the actual episode in other episodes, in at least one other episode with that same instrument and the same the turn going up instead of down. But I agree that I liked that much better than the other thing that we get sometimes. And by sometimes I mean every time, which is this,
every time except the last.
which is the strings.
Yeah, but-
Is better on guitar or whatever. Sounded like a Spanish
Yeah.
guitar, says the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
And I think I'm now primed to expect it. At first, it was like very cheesy to me. It's still kind of cheesy, but it is like kind of like a hype moment when you get the 2 preparation notes before the theme. Like no matter where you are, like harmonically, it sets you up to go back to the G minor by giving you the 2 5 by giving you the 2 dominant notes. So the theme is in G minor, and so it always before goes.
Yeah, exactly.
So you know exactly the next chord.
You're like, oh, okay, we're about to go to the title sequence,
Yeah.
And it's great rhythmically because it plays into the it's like we almost heard the 11-4, but we were just hearing the last, the 10, 11, boom, as we get into it kind of a thing.
Right,
Like
right,
that.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Like no matter where you are, as long as you have those 2 notes as it's like it brings us all in.
Yep,
which is
it's
cool.
the 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 2, and it's just those last. It's the 2. I bet like now at this point I could just hear these 2 notes out of context and just think Boba Fett theme.
That's right. Just yell across the
Oh,
map.
Boba Fett,
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Cool. So let's now go around and say something that we either are not sure that we liked or just want to talk about more because we don't understand it or something. Just something we think we want to make sure to touch upon this stream.
Project much? Okay.
I mean,
like, Xanthe's basically like, there are things that I don't like.
I'm ready.
and I need to talk about.
But
so
you
let
go
me just-
first.
Let me
You
let
will
me
do
make
you.
my
Okay,
guess.
okay, okay.
do it.
I can go first. Okay. That's not the only reason. It's definitely a reason,
Okay.
but it's also so that like our streams get long sometimes, and then there's sort of it would be cool. I think instead of just like every 5 seconds, I have like a new thing that I forgot to think about that I'm bringing up. Like, yeah. Um, so a few things that I hope that we end up talking about are the AI voice, Luke's AI voice, the training montage. I think that could be a whole big discussion. This is not a thing I didn't like. This is a thing I actually did like, but it is a thing that I hope that we touch upon, which is all the droid sounds. Like I actually really liked a lot of the droid robot sounds. I liked a lot of the sound design of this episode actually. And so that would be, and of course it would be interesting to talk about Cad Bane's voice, which I think we're going to do. And though I think those are the main things that I'll hang my hat on right now.
Yeah. For some things that I hope we talk about that I'm what if about. Also, whether I don't think there's anything I disliked in this episode, but there's always things we can discuss that could have been done better. Same as my first answer, nostalgia. I both loved it and also questioned it at the same time. We're definitely going to talk about Cad Bane's voice. Not in any negative sense, but just to point out the differences and things that I found interesting about that. And also, something that I thought I want to talk about is, as you mentioned droids and the droid sound design, I want to talk about R2-D2. R2-D2, kind of along with Luke's voice, but R2-D2, for some reason, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
There's just something didn't tickle me right about it. And I have some ideas, or at least opinions, on what that might have been.
Interesting.
Yeah. James, what about you?
I mean, that's enough for us to talk.
It's your turn, James.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, y'all. Like
Anyone in chat, you can add to.
It's definitely powerful to be able to like see something that resembles like Mark Hamill in the early 80s, like on screen today, like it's very powerful to be able to see that through deep faking or whatever technology they're using to create. But I don't know, I keep finding myself just wishing they would have cast Luke, like just would have cast somebody that we could all just like get used to as being the new Luke Skywalker from now on. Like, I don't know, or maybe people wouldn't like it like some people felt a little strange with Alden with the Solo movie. But I just, if they're gonna keep, I think it's admirable, all the technology, and it's like difficult for me to like point out what's wrong considering how amazing this technology is. Like it's incredible that they're doing what they're doing. So I can't like, part of me is a little bit like who like how ridiculous it is for me to point out the few times when it's like very uncanny and very like strange to see a robotic looking deep fake voice, but at the same time like, or a deep fake face on the screen. But at the same time, it's an amazing triumph that they've even made it look the way they do. So, but I also just would like to get used to a new actor. Like, just like, let's get to know this. If they're going to keep putting Luke in the stories, which it seems like they're like making, if he's going to keep showing up, then I'd rather like just get affiliated with somebody else, and just be like, this is our new Luke Skywalker, and like, let's get to know him as a human being, as opposed to like a bunch of pixels that we're looking at. So that hasn't sat perfectly with me yet. It takes me a little bit out of it, as I imagine the voice does. I think it's the combination of the voice and the imagery. There's just a couple of things that in this episode that feel just like they're either just like actively just like super tropey, or things that seem like they're actively like creating dramatic tension or dramatic moments for the sake of like, I don't know. There's some things that just don't come off naturally, just story wise in this episode. They feel like they've been put in there just to like namely the decision that Grogu for some reason needs to make at the end of the episode. Like this feels like a very much like let's position Grogu into a place where like he needs to, like that doesn't seem in some ways a logical thing that for Luke Skywalker to be proposing to another Jedi, considering Luke Skywalker has an entire like family and sister and all these things that I'm guarantee that he's not just like forsaking for the rest of his life, you know, like he's got his whole family connection. He's got all of his attachments. He's got all his relationships.
I think we have to talk about what attachments means.
I know. But he's got he's got similar relationships that Grogu would have with his quote unquote father at the beginning of his trading. So I think it's part of it doesn't sit right with me. Part of it seems like an odd choice. That seems to be only serving the story as opposed to the characters. But I don't know, but maybe not. I mean, maybe they'll flesh it out. But it's like Luke Skywalker isn't making those choices for himself. You know, like he's not forcing himself to pick over like Leia and Han and eventually his nephew, you know, to follow the Jedi way. So why is he it's a little bit strange to force that onto Grogu, you know?
It's not, I don't think it's the same thing.
It's not the same, but it's similar. It seems like for what we think that we know about what Luke has learned as a Jedi, you know, at this point, and also like what caused him to quote unquote beat the Emperor was not to like forsake his connection to his father and to, you know, there's a lot to be talked about, you know. So I don't know, it just feels like an odd choice for Luke Skywalker, the person that we're supposed to like, you know, really like trust and everything, to be making what seems like a kind of a manipulative decision that I don't know if this is the type of decision like that we're supposed to now think that is the better Jedi way. Than like this seems to be very much like prequel Jedi type of decision as opposed to like you know, revamped Jedi you know, decision. So I don't know how I feel about it.
I get what you're saying. Without getting too crazy into it, I think a lot of it, I've been thinking a lot about that too, and just how he, as a character that we're familiar with, is now behaving and knowing where he's going.
Yeah,
you know, because we have an idea of where all this is going.
Right.
To me, it's very much a person who has no clue what he's doing.
Right.
He's a
bad teacher, and this whole show is the episode is a terrible teacher.
I mean, if we think about it, you know, he's been handed essentially a child to move on the ways of the Jedi Force. I don't know what in the timeline exactly, but in a way, he just found out Ahsoka exists.
Yeah.
After all this time.
Right. Hypothetically recently, or maybe not recently. We don't know, right?
Yeah.
I guess.
So it's kind of an interesting. I think he's going by the book because that's all he's got.
So I think it's been really hard for people, for me, to interpret that whole scene because of the voice, because his acting is such a blank slate in this episode. It's like hard to even know what to extrapolate from that situation. Like I hear a lot of people talking about how this is kind of prequel-y and how, you know, isn't the no attachments thing sort of supposed to be a lesson to be learned from. And that kind of sparks me to go on a whole, to then question like why no attachments are a Jedi tenet in the first place. And then I kind of err on the side of defending no attachments. Like I think no attachments are a good idea for Jedi. But I think like in either of those readings, there's also, we have no choice but to like put so many of our own assumptions on there, because Luke's like, as an actor, he's like not giving us anything. And that's kind of, and I think that's why for me, the deep fake isn't as jarring as the AI generated voice.
Yeah.
Is like, it's just like the inflection, like
it's not there.
Everything sounds sounds so blank. So I think that it's, I don't know, I can't even imagine, like as an actor, you always have to like have kind of like an ulterior motive in your head, or like something that you're pushing against internally that you never say, but like it comes through in the inflection. But just knowing how like it was just an AI generated reading lines. Like it just
Yeah.
sounded like a line reader.
It's
And
weird. Why did they
yeah,
just
Right.
find someone that sounds like Mark Hamill from the 80s?
that's the
They're
thing.
like, just find
professional
someone to
people that-
actually
There's
speak
so
the
many
line.
There's so many voice actors that do Mark Hamill voices that can do Luke Skywalker voices. Like
It's weird.
the video games cast them. Like
Mhm.
I know.
even if they kept the deep fake voice, even if they kept the visual, they could have like I don't know, changing the audio would have. I think it would have helped me a lot.
Yeah.
I agree with you. That sound design was as an AI generation, despite again going with the deep fake face and the AI generated voice. I would like to tip my hat and say, wow.
Like,
Yeah,
But
technical
at this,
feat.
technical feat.
you know where that would be
Wow.
awesome? At like Galaxy's Edge, right? As
Right,
like
right.
you know, where
As
you're not
a-
supposed to like invest in the character necessarily. It's like part of the experience. But this is like you're trying to gain like motivations and what's going on, but it's like a so it's just it's not quite there. And even though they've gone amazing directions, it's like just the fact that that's what Uncanny Valley is, right? It's like it's not quite there, and every bit that it's not there is amplified because it's so close, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Blue Pig.
And this goes, yeah. It was
I think his body was stand-in, but they
Yeah.
deep fake like they put the
His
new
face.
face on there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was cool that the I forget their name, but I read somewhere that the person who did the deepfake for Mandalorian
YouTuber.
for Luke, he got the job to do this one because of that, which was I thought was pretty cool. But using, I wouldn't have minded the deepfake. So I mean, again, it was. I think this goes back to me saying nostalgia so many times now. It's sitting there watching this, hearing, because hearing is so powerful for all this stuff, hearing Mark Hamill's voice in a very weird way, but still hearing it, seeing Mark Hamill in a very weird way, but still seeing. Sitting there watching this episode, I had a moment where I was like, I felt like, this is going to be weird to say, but I felt like I was watching Star Wars again. Like, it was, I don't know, like, there was an excitement, there was a familiarity. There was, I'm hearing the Force theme, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. There's like 3-4 times it appeared in this episode. I'm seeing not Yoda. I'm hearing Yoda, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, too. Yoda's theme came in a few times in this episode. And it brings me back. But nostalgia is just nostalgia. I want to move on in so many ways. I would, just like you're saying, James, I would have loved just a new person. Let's just do it. We did it in Harry Potter. We did it in all sorts of shows. We've done it, and it's fine, and it'll be fine. Yeah, well, I'm sure Disney's trying to prevent the swaths of angry internet fans saying, "How dare you recast Mark Hamill?" But like, it's not. It's not recasting Mark Hamill. It's putting a new character, new person to play a fictional character.
I bet in some ways,
Orc
George
Fonts-
Lucas.
I don't understand, or what do you? What does this comment refer to? I'm just curious. But go on, James.
Yeah, I think in some ways George Lucas might have loved what they're doing because it's so pushing the envelope of technology wise, and in some ways I think that's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if that's motivating this charge forward with this technology for this show, as opposed to, because they could have, I wouldn't be surprised if part of them are thinking like, let's like really try to push the envelope here and try to do it just for the sake of doing it, because it's not cheap to do what they're doing. It's like way cheaper to just cast somebody else, so in some ways, like, I think they're probably,
I mean, we don't know that for a fact.
I know, that's why I said probably.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I wouldn't be surprised if that.
I would err on probably, the more probably. It's,
That's why I didn't say like, oh, somebody from Lucasfilm called me yesterday and told me this, right? So okay, so I'd say, if I was speculating, that definitely, I think Lucasfilm and ILM, this is kind of their bag. This is like they try to push the envelope with what they do on screen, and this is definitely a huge step forward for some filmmakers, right? It's just like to basically resurrect people from the dead using computers. It's a pretty lofty idea. To the point where they've given him so much screen time in this show that is all hinging on this being effective. And in some scenes it was. I think the first scene with Luke was like pretty nice when they're sitting down and they're conversing. You know, when he's like opens his eye, he goes Grogu. You know,
Oh,
I thought
the
that
frogs. Yeah, the
frog
frogs.
scene I thought was like, whoa, this is really good. I think the worst one was when he's in the forest and he's like, he said, size matters not. That's how he talked. He talked in riddles. Have you ever heard anyone talk like that where you're from? And first of all, I just want to say, like, speaking
Not
with
all
you,
you
like, you know,
got.
with your grammar switched around in your sentence is not speaking in riddles. Like, if I'd say it's probably accurate to say Yoda spoke in riddles in some ways, but I don't think the size matters not is a riddle. He's basically saying, hey, size doesn't matter, and I'm just grammatically orienting my sentence in a different way. So I thought that was an odd like quote for him to pick, to be like, he spoke in riddles. It's like, no, Luke, he just like puts his like noun in a different place in this sentence. It's not really a riddle sentence. Anyways, I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah,
that was a
no.
nitpick.
Well,
Yes.
and that would almost be for me with the AI generated how it
Right.
inflected his voice. That would almost be forgivable for me in the idea that he thinks he's talking to a child. I mean, he is talking
Yeah.
to a child, so it's like very. But the one that got me, and I because I didn't know it was AI generated, and then when I first watched the episode,
Yeah.
and the one that got me thinking like, did they do this thing that I think they did to R2D2 as well? But when he says, "Well, I see you again," to Ahsoka,
Yeah.
there's nothing. You're talking to somebody. You're not talking to a
Will
child
I
at this
see
point.
you again?
Well, I see. It was like it felt like it was pulled from something. Like, did we
Yeah.
AI generated? Did we go through everything that Mark Hamill has done,
Right.
and words sampled everything, and just sat there with a MIDI keyboard
Yeah.
and put in his words, word by word. You know.
Yeah. It's interesting. I grew up all around water. Anyway,
So okay, so I think it actually it is cheaper to use the AI stuff, at least long term, than to hire actual actors and do that whole thing. And that's been a lot of the criticism too. But even despite that, and even if the technology could be perfected in a couple years, like for me, it's not even about like how well the AI did. Like I think it's called Respeecher or something. How
yeah.
good of a job Respeecher did this time, and oh, we just have to wait for it to get better. For me, it's like I don't care how good it gets. Like I don't values wise, like I don't like that. And
Yeah.
I don't think it just extended to Luke. I think this episode really was like a confluence of this type of thing happening for years already. Like I already thought like Mandalorian season 1, like I was not like I like Mandalorian. I really like Mandalorian, but I don't like love it like to the extent that one could love something. I guess, and to me, it's like the fact that the Mandalorian acts through a helmet most of the time. That really took me a long time to get used to. It took me a long time to get used to it and to like feel any to care about the Mandalorian. And now that like it's been a couple seasons, like I get it and like I'm on board with it. But still, there are some times where like the physical acting and the voice acting with Mandalorian, and not only that, but the way that his scene partners interact with him does take me out of it a little bit. And there were some parts during his conversation with Cobb Vanth that I was like, all right, okay, these lines are kind of I'm not they don't feel delivered in like such a I don't know in a great way. And I felt this really big time when Ahsoka was talking too, when Rosario Dawson, like this is not anything against literally any of these actors. Like all of these actors, I've seen them all do better stuff in other places. And in these scenes, especially when there's so many, when like there, I felt bad for Ahsoka. I felt bad for Ahsoka here. She's interacting with this Luke ish character. She's interacting with droids. She's interacting with Mando with a helmet on. She's interacting with puppet Grogu. Like
Yeah.
like Ahsoka's lines came off as just as stilted as the
Yeah.
rest, and
Like,
I think it's because she didn't have anything to like.
it's like when Ian McKellen basically
Yeah.
broke down, started crying on the set of The Hobbit because he was basically like talking to green screens the whole time. Or it's kind of like if you ever hear Ewan McGregor talk about filming the end of Revenge of the Sith when he hands off the baby to the at the Larms homestead, and he like talks about how he basically wasn't real people there. There was nothing real. It was all blue, and he like got off a speeder bike that was like a blue like speeder or a blue like saddle. And he's like, I wasn't even acting against anything there, you know? So, you know, you got to give it up for some of these actors that, you know, or at least feel bad for them for sure. Yeah.
And Dave Filoni feels like maybe, I don't know, maybe he's the kind of director, like, I don't know. I've been on a lot of sets and acted and stuff. And there are some directors who are just like, we'll fix it in post to like everything. And anyone who does any sort of post-production in any field knows that fixing things in post is like, it's not magic. You can only do so much with what you are given. And there were a lot of things in this episode that I felt like, oh, this should have been reshot, but it felt like a let's fix it in post moment, but with things that couldn't be fixed, with like, you just have to let the actor have another take at it, or like, you need to just block this scene better. Like Ahsoka's exit, I was just like, the way that she exited the frame, I was like, that reads like the director didn't give the actor a good, like, a direction of like, you were going here. She's literally like, perhaps, like, you know, he's like, will I see you again? And she's like, perhaps, or whatever. I don't even remember what she says. And she like turns her body and then just like leaves,
Go
like
the other direction. Yeah.
in this like really awkward, like, I just need to get off frame or something. Like,
you know, she
I
should have
didn't
done it.
feel intention.
She should have done the Black Chrysanthemum and just ran away from
That's
the
another
scene.
one where it's like, you need to like, with all this high tech stuff, which is fantastic. Like, I love technology. I'm like obsessed with AI, which is why this whole thing matters to me so much. You can't. You can't do that at the expense of like the really core things, like, I don't know, human interaction, storytelling, blocking, like what is actually going to be seen on camera. You can't expect the magic to just be put in and to cover up stuff like that. We're all musicians. We know that it still really matters to be able to play your instrument for a recording and not like we know that like there's only so much recording and there's only so much the mixing can do. There's only so much you can do editing wise.
The amount of times I've been asked to make magic happen after the fact. it's there's a t-shirt I want. It just says fix it in pre. You know, just do it now and save yourself hours of frustration.
Yeah.
I feel for you, Ross. Ross says,
yeah.
"Well, fix it in post" was so exhausting to hear when I was on set as an editor. That sucks.
Fix it in pre.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so definitely some thoughts on what they did there. It took me out. You know, I just would honestly, I think it would be like infinitely fixed if they didn't use robot AI Mark Hamill voice. Like,
Me too.
Like I think it would have like so much of it would have sat with me better if they just had an actual actor read those lines. And because some of them I'm just like, how is that the final version of that line, right? You know, because it's really interesting, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, it kind of looked like watching the director play with action figures, where I think the Star Wars in itself, just by virtue of being something that we all love and have internalized in tropey ways, like we have internalized pockets of things are immediately referential, and I think that's like tropes. That's the thing with tropes, right? They come with a lot of baggage for good and bad, and sometimes it works really well because all you have to do is put in the Force theme, and then people who know can immediately bring their own baggage to that, and it can imbue it with more meaning. And this felt like I don't know, like it felt like it was kind of relying on that a little bit too much, like relying on fans to be able to bridge that gap. And to their credit, it worked for a lot of people. Um, it worked for me a little bit, but
It
I didn't
worked
like
for
this
me
episode.
great.
I didn't like
Worked
this
for me. Yeah, me
episode.
too.
So it didn't ultimately work for me, but
Yeah,
it did. To first, like there is no universe in which I see Luke Skywalker and I'm not immediately, like at least initially, excited. So
sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they did all that. I don't think like in some ways, uh, and I know that Xanthe, you and I feel kind of differently about this. But in some ways, I am a total like Wikipedia entry box checking type Star Wars fan, and I can like sometimes if they just do the things on paper that I like I get excited that they did the things that I like, even if I didn't emotionally resonate with it, right?
huh.
So even if they told like everything that has happened in this episode on paper, I'm like excited about because Luke Skywalker is building his temple with a bunch of androids and is training Grogu and has met Ahsoka and the Mandalorian, and Cad Bane is like still alive and is now working for the Pikes, and the Pikes are running spice through Tatooine, and there's shootouts happening between Cad Bane. So some of the things that like just on paper that are happening in Star Wars, and like Boba Fett like is running Jabba's palace with like a crew of like, like there's things that are just on
I
paper.
wish any of that was felt exciting and vital to
Yeah.
me.
So this is what I'm saying
It
is like some
sucks.
of it feels like they didn't do it great, but on paper. So I got to say, like you and I feel kind of differently about Rise of Skywalker. And the way you feel about this show is exactly how I feel about Rise of Skywalker, where I'm like, I love everything that on paper that they did, but I didn't connect with any of it. Like in some, not any of it. No, I didn't connect with it as well as I could have because of the way they made it. Right. So if I can make it that way, like all the check boxes are there, like, for Rise of Skywalker, similarly, they are for Mando. Like, and so I have to say that some of this really, I mean, I think Justin and I like, probably if you asked us, did we like this episode? Like, stop me if I'm speaking for you, Justin, but I would say yes. I don't know. Would yes be your like one version answer to that question, or no? Or would it be just like too much of a complicated answer to this question?
It's not a complicated answer. Yes, I did like this episode.
Okay. So,
But I think, but if I wanted to make it complicated for a second, I think it's because I thought I was, like I said, I thought I was watching Star Wars. I didn't think I was watching Book of Boba Fett. I didn't
right.
think I was watching Mandalorian. I felt like I was watching Star Wars. I know the whole thing is Star Wars. I know the whole universe and the package and the franchise and the stamp and all that is Star Wars. But what I mean by I felt like I was watching Star Wars before all of this existed.
I felt like I was watching a disc image of Star Wars. I felt like I was watching a reference to a file that like I click on it, I think the file's going to open, but just a reference to like a reference to a reference. That's what I felt like I was watching, where it was like could really fool me at first, a tiny bit, but then it's like it didn't it 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 didn't go all the way, and things don't have to be perfect. That's the thing. I can if my emotions are on board, I can forgive, like I won't even notice, like I won't be looking for anything, I won't be looking for mistakes, I won't be looking for things like that. I don't like watching, like, which is why when I tend to react to media, I either loved it or I didn't like it. Like there's not much in between for me. Like I either was on board, or if I have a very complex relationship with something, it's because I didn't really emotionally connect, and I'm trying really hard to think about it and justify things and develop my reasoning about it and whatever. But if I like something, then I don't even have to think about it. I don't have to be convinced to like something. Like if I like something, I'll just like it. And it's even when flaws emerge, like it doesn't it doesn't take away the fact that I originally liked it. And so my emotions are like the most important
Yeah.
thing for me when reacting to something. And for this, it's like, I love scenes in like any Star Wars media where Padawans are getting trained. I love training. I love training sequences. They're the best. I love
Right.
them. Did not like this one. Did not like it. I think a lot of it was because of the music, but I think a lot of it was also the direction and the angles of the camera and things like that. But
Yeah.
if I loved it, I wouldn't be picking it apart. But because it didn't land with me, I've had to pick it apart and think about why it didn't land with me.
Yeah, I didn't mind the training. I think what I'm hearing, what I want to say, one, the voice, we've all established the AI voice. Anything with the AI voice was like, oh my goodness, this is throwing me out of it. But you're right, the
Yeah.
music was weird for the training montage. It was almost monotone, like or like monochromatic to me. It all blended. There was some little action. There was some little little things like during the lightsaber part. But I felt like anytime it was Grogu learning the Force, it was these nice harp bell chords that almost, yeah, these
Yeah, whatever. It was like,
but it was
So
almost ambient music. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah. And almost had this
you know
like
what?
ambient music form to it. That was just, it didn't feel, it all just, the whole thing felt like mystical childlike wonder. And I get it.
Yeah.
We get it. Yes, we know he's a mystical child and he's wondering things. But, you know,
Yeah, I know what you mean. Hey, that theme right there, Xanthe, that theme is definitely from The Mandalorian.
yeah, it's from the
And
baby.
it's from The Baby. Okay. And it also is recreated. Like I like the scene I found was in the tragedy where Grogu is like throwing the stormtroopers when he's on board the Moff Gideon's ship when he's been captured, and he's throwing them like all the stormtroopers around. You get it like you get it like in that way. And it goes up to there, and it sounds, that's where it sounds the most like Kylo Ren's theme, right? Rare, whatever it is. Nope. Right? Is that right? Is that
No,
correct? Yeah.
but I understand your.
No, yeah, that's right. It goes down
No,
to
it's
E
not.
the fifth.
something
What's
though
what?
there.
Well, then tell me what's the note it goes down to.
What key are we in? No, I can't.
Oh, it's C. C. Duh. Yeah, duh. C. Yeah, goes down to the fifth. I forgot what key we were in for a second. All right.
Oh my god, that was so trippy. It's not. Yeah. It's but the motion is the it goes down a half step and then goes down a few steps and then goes back up.
Yeah, I mean the
They
first
both
four
happen.
notes are the same intervals, right? It only, instead of going down to, it goes up to, right? Right.
Yeah,
But anyway,
yeah.
the point being is that this is a Grogu theme, and they just recycled it into this like training montage, right? And that seemed to be the one driving piece of thematic stuff that just keeps coming back
Yeah.
in this part, right? Yeah, it was nice. I mean, I didn't dislike the training montage. It was nice.
It's fine.
You know,
Yeah,
he's jumping over stuff. He's like a little Star Wars water buffalo in there and stuff, you know?
I mean,
Nice.
don't get me wrong. I was
Empire Strikes Back throwback, right? You know, it's
Yeah.
nice.
I was squealing like the fan I was the entire time. I was going, "Oh my god, he's doing it! He jumped!" You know, but
I have no joy in my life.
no, I mean, I'm trying to look at it critically, but at the same time, let's be honest. I was sitting on my couch, smile crying the entire episode. I'm like, "Oh my god, it's all there."
Okay.
Um,
I went back and watched all the training montages from the other movies or training scenes, and I have to say that this episode did something that I hoped would never happen, which is I'm over Grogu. I just I'm sick of Grogu in stuff now. And it's not because I'm over Grogu, it's because I'm tired of the way that Grogu is depicted and it's boring to me. This training montage was boring to me because, well, okay, first of all, I think it's the process of becoming a Jedi is like one of the most interesting things to me in Star Wars. And the whole training part is like a massive aspect of that. It's like a massive rite of passage. It's like a massive threshold to cross. It's like a thing where the characters overcome these struggles that are super internal, and we see them on screen and in the music, and we see them come out in just like strange way, like fever dreams. Like we see like
Yeah.
characters at their weirdest, like moments, like when they're training. And for me, this was I'm gonna pull up what I tweeted back. I have to say, Frank Lehman did like the training montage, like a lot of people did. He said that it was something he sorely missed in the sequel trilogy, so that's cool. So I said I didn't, and he asked why. He said that he thought it was lovely and dynamic development of Grogu's material, and agreed that is like one way to look at it. And obviously there's no wrong interpretations of this. That's what was meaningful about it to him, so that's great. And he's right, it developed Grogu's material. And for me, I did not like it, and it made me sick of Grogu in this whole series because, once again, it anchored me to Grogu as an object, not a subject of his own training. It sounded like nice. It honestly, it sounded like it felt like I was watching a proud dad's like inspirational slideshow of their kid doing stuff. It was like not a Grogu is training montage. It was more of a Luke is training Grogu montage. The music was for the people watching this thing be so cute. It wasn't for like Grogu. Like I don't know any. I didn't get Grogu. We weren't getting Grogu. We were getting everyone else's gaze of Grogu. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
everything was just once again, like Grogu is still like a pet. He's still like a cute pet. It doesn't help that he doesn't talk. So I guess that's but filmmakers are they can do cool things. Like that doesn't have to be a barrier. Even though we did get to see like Order 66 through Grogu's eyes, and we got to see Grogu do some stuff that is like, oh, a little bit of growth. It's definitely nothing compared to any of the other force sensitive rites of passage that we've seen. And I thought like to the point of like it was so vapid and so like you could just stitch together like any B-roll footage that you had of Grogu training. Like it literally was just a random B-roll training video with corporate like I mean, I thought
Join
it
the
sounded
Jedi.
I thought it sounded like someone I looked up on YouTube like corporate inspirational music, and was just like listening to stock music, and it felt like that. It was like a loop of just footage, and that just like I guess that was the point because Grogu's heart clearly isn't in it. So
Well,
his training
well,
montage was just like
I mean,
that.
well, it's also not training that's happening. It's Grogu accessing memory. It's like he's not going through any rite of passage at the moment because he's just remembering what he's already been trained. Like you have to. I mean, we have to
Well, yeah.
bear in mind that everything that Grogu has quote unquote learned on screen in this episode is just things that he's already learned. So he's already like I imagine there is a version of all these moments where he's learning how to jump, learning how to access the Force,
Sure,
learning how to like that he's already undergone, and this is just a repeat of those moments.
Sure, but still, that doesn't. They did add abilities. Yeah.
What did you say?
I'm reading. They added abilities to him, but no growth. Yeah. Well, they gave
Well,
the pet some new
he's
tricks.
remembering shit that he already knows how to do.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I just swore.
That's fine. That's fine. But whether it's remembering or learning for the first time, it doesn't matter. It's like he's plussing up, but we don't know anything more about Grogu. We just know that
like
he
Assassin's
can be
Creed, where he's like unlocking all his things from his ancestors. No, I know what you mean. I don't know if I wasn't affected by this montage like you were. I think that might be your thoughts and your feelings to this
for
montage.
sure, for sure.
I felt perfectly like, I thought it was perfectly pleasant and fun to see. Um, but yeah, if it didn't sit for you, then yeah, dig it.
I mean, I thought it was cute. Like I thought it was fun. It wasn't like it's like seeing Fennec is fun, but like I would not say that she has been given the same, like even remotely the same treatment as, I don't know, other people in her co-starring position should. And same with Grogu. I would not classify this as like a Grogu rite of passage training video. It
It's
just was
just
something different. Like I think
here's
Grogu's
what
cute.
yeah. Here's I think the crux of what you're saying. I think even the way that and I think this might be linked to why this didn't go down in some ways that you're saying is like it felt so weird to see these moments in this show. So not it's like two sides of the same coin where it's like some people are like, why isn't Boba Fett getting screen time? Right? Or like whatever. Like people have that thought about this episode and last episode. Like, why isn't Boba Fett being focused on? Why aren't we seeing his growth? But I'm also like, I was like, this is not enough time for us to be spending with Grogu and Luke. Like this should be happening in like Mandalorian season 3. Like we should be able to spend more time with Grogu on his journey with Luke instead of just packing it into an episode of Boba Fett, right? It's
Yeah.
it feels like this is not the show to show us what seemed like same thing with the Ahsoka and Luke moment. Like I guess I wanted to see them meet. I want to see the look on Ahsoka's face when she hears about Anakin and how he was saved at the end. I want to see the look on Ahsoka's face when she realized that the person that she thought had been lost to the dark side came back and saved saved the galaxy, honestly, and saved Luke. And I want to see that look, but apparently we just get to see that she's just met Luke already, and this is like I almost feel like any dramatic feeling that we see of Ahsoka meeting Luke in her own show, if that actually does happen, say that she like meets Luke in her own show and for the first time, so in some way for me the emotion has been sucked out of that scene because we've already seen her on screen with Luke. Like just the fact that she, like, to me, like Luke Skywalker is like a person that I think would blow Ahsoka's mind in terms of like what her journey was through Rebels and everything, right? Right? Like so I think the fact that all this is happening in one little episode of Book of Boba Fett goes to your point, Xanthe, in some ways, and like it all feels like not the version of all these moments that we want to actually see. It feels like a weirdly like a little addendum or a little like bookmark in the Book of Boba Fett as opposed to like let's actually see Grogu like do this, let's actually see Ahsoka and Luke do this. Let's actually see Luke Skywalker struggle with his first experience ever training a person, or a thing or whatever, a being. Like this is the first time we ever see Luke Skywalker ever train is his first student ever. That's huge. And it's just episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, I agree. It almost like we talked about this last week of whether or not, like briefly, whether or not that episode that was basically all Din, whether or not this was a Book of Boba Fett episode, or if this was just tying this in to some like, oh, Boba Fett's actually a spinoff. I feel like this almost solidified that. I was ready to go back. It's like, okay, we did that. I want to go see Boba. What is he doing? We just built up all these music. We just built up I want to see this Rancor. I want to see all these things. And now we're at the last episode. And what did I write in my notes? I still do not know what the show is about 6 episodes in.
It's just a sequence of Star Wars events and that are happening concurrently, that's what it is.
I don't think I had a problem with the fact that that this happened during Book of Boba Fett, and I'm not super I'm not itching to go back to like I'm just give me whatever. Like I don't really care what you give me, just give me something with some heart in it. That's all I care about.
Just give me some
I'm not
soul, baby.
invested.
Well, there's that
I'm
too.
not invested in any of the storylines started by the Boba thing. Like, I don't care about the Rancor writing. Like, I don't want to see it. I don't not want to see it. It's
Well,
just
right. I
I
just
just
want to
want
see
to
the
see
Rancor.
I just
I
want to
forgot
see
about
something inspired. I just want to see something with
Yeah, I know what
with
you mean.
something, no matter what it is. And so if this
Some
training montage exactly how it was were in a Grogu show or whatever, I would probably be even more upset. Because it was so vapid to me.
Well, no. I think that I was trying to. What I'm trying to say is like the reason, like it being in this show and not being a major event in its own show, is the reason why why it was made this way. Like I think that's connected. I think the fact that it was made to feel like B footage, stock footage,
Yeah.
is because it's part of this huge show that's being split. All the attention to the show is being split throughout all these different characters, and the budget and the everything is being scattered, that it doesn't have an internal consistency. That I bet if they put this moment in like Mando season 3 and like the narrative was following Grogu through the whole thing, I bet they would have done this scene better. I bet they would have made it better. And I bet they would have like made it feel have more weight within its own series. I bet they would have. I think the reason why it came off as so shallow and the reason why it was made, like you said, the footage, the way it was shot, the music, everything about it that you got from it, I think the reason why it ended up coming out the way is because it just got dropped into this seemingly important scene, got dropped into the middle of a series that can't decide who its main character is. Right?
Perhaps, but like I can't read the intentions of like what would have been different. But to me, if I read it as it is maybe because the whole point is that it's not supposed to come off as a big journey. Like it's maybe supposed to be kind of vapid, or it's maybe supposed to be just kind of like cute thing, because maybe the whole point is that Grogu's going to decide to be like, screw this, I don't want to do this, and my heart's not in it. I would have been like, can you imagine? I can't even imagine if like this had happened remotely, something like this with like Rey or like any other character. When people talk about like how Jedi learned their shit or whatever, like for some reason, like I don't know, just I don't know what is up with Grogu, and I don't like. Maybe like I would prefer to do. I mean, I guess we can't really do a time jump. I don't know how old do they have to be before they start talking, or or even if not talking, just like
I
I'm
want
sure
him
there
to
are
be a
other
little
ways that he
CGI Attack of the Clones Yoda. That's what I want him to be right now. Like I really want him to just grow up and be that, so he can start talking and moving around like less puppet like. I just like I want that. I got the puppet version of him with his mobility, but I think I'd connect better to him if he was moving more like Yoda from Attack of the Clones. Like
I just need
think
more of his POV, and that's what this show is. I think that's what this show is. That's what I'm struggling with. Not only just like I'm not getting emotionally invested in a character because I'm not getting like much from their perspective. Like they're kind of shells. They're kind of like their armor or whatever is too big for me to penetrate, and I don't know. Like they have to. You can't just move around characters like on like a cork board and just be like, this one says this in the dialogue itself. No, things like the performance and things like everything else that goes into this amazing medium that is film and television, like needs to be making the audience feel something more so than beyond just whether the tropes of the dialogue are working.
Again, this show tried to bite off a lot more than it can chew in some ways because it packed all of this into one season. And I don't think there is a version of this show that contains all these events on paper that does what you're saying effectively, because there's simply too much going on in the show. There's simply too much going on in it, and I don't think there is a version that makes you feel what you want to feel from these moments without taking out stuff from the show, because it's just too many stories being told and too much going on, And
I feel
that being said, I enjoy that, and I'm less bothered by it than you are. Because in some ways, there's two reasons like why I actually have a friend of mine that says like this is his quote. He's like, I want when I go to see a movie or something, I want two things. Either I want it to make me like think and feel something, or I want it to feel like a ride. And I'm happy if it does one of those two things or both of those things. And so far, the show has felt like a ride much more than it's made me feel things. And so in some ways, I'm like, wee, Star Wars, woo,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and that's like kind of been like why I'm walking out like excited from it. It definitely hasn't made me feel as much as like The Last Jedi did, right, or anything like that, right? So, so I hear you.
I want to pull up some. Have people been talking about Too Fast, Too Furious?
No, so
What's up?
Angela made in the comments said the show's about family, and that's like the meme that all those Fast and Furious movies, it's about family. These
Oh,
movies
okay.
are about
Okay.
family.
I'm gonna pull up some
Anyway,
comments. Auric Font says in Jedi Fallen Order, your character remembers how to use the Force, but you learn about his character. You can just remember things and have it matter.
yeah,
But felt like none of this training mattered. Agree.
yeah,
Din can now bring Grogu along on missions, and he can force jump away from blasters instead of Din always having to find a babysitter.
yeah, it's
Shows
true.
about family, family and loyalty. They're going to cross pollinate other people's journeys across the series for better or worse. I've kind of made my peace with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
I don't think I have. I don't think I've made my peace with it. No. Um, I think it's too, yeah, I think it's too exclusionary. Or I think going too far down that route becomes exclusionary at the expense of telling good stories. I already feel that way about High Republic, where it's like, oh well, if you had read this book and if you had read this one of the High Republic, they're all separate things, but you have to have read this one to know this character that we're talking about in this one. And if you buy all the High Republic stuff, it costs like almost, I don't know, it's hundreds of dollars worth of stuff just for phase one. Like, I don't know. It's a lot. Okay. If the show were about loyalty, people's loyalties would be tested. I haven't seen that happen once. He might be 75 years old before he learns to talk. And yeah, that could be fine. Like, I understand that he might not talk also because of trauma or whatever, but I don't know, maybe it's the camera work. Maybe it's like, maybe they feel like they're kind of in a corner because they have to keep doing cute Grogu, and maybe they weren't expecting to have to draw Grogu out this long
Right.
and turn Grogu from being an object into a subject, because so far he's pretty much been an object this whole time. Yeah, I don't know.
It just would be nice if he could speak for himself, right, in some way, shape, or
Yeah,
form.
exactly. Or
Like
be
just
given
be
some
able.
motivations.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a vessel for stuff. He's not like
Mhm.
if you were to go through training, and maybe when he has to make this choice, maybe he's gonna like freak out, and then we're gonna like get something from him. That would be cool. It is hugely influenced by Lone Wolf and Cub, in which the baby doesn't really talk.
Well, I know that the first seasons were, but or the first half of it, but they've kind of pivoted away from that, right? Because it's no
Mhm.
longer really that anymore. Now they're kind of attempting to give Grogu his own arc and his own choice and his own everything, So, um,
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
One of the things I really liked about this episode and the music and the sound design, and especially during this training montage
yeah,
kind of moment, I wanted to
speaker.
point out was besides hearing Yoda's theme, which is one of my favorite things from
oh,
the John Williams scores, I thought that was kind of interesting that we're just by looking at I mean, we did the whole Baby Yoda thing, right? But it's not Baby Yoda. He's not Baby Yoda, but we're gonna throw Yoda's theme on there, which is interesting. Is it just
yeah,
because it's the same species? um, but the Force, we got to hear the Force, some things like that, and me and my Force sounds. What I thought was really interesting about the meditation scene with the frogs, and maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm just hearing things as I usually do, but anyone notice how wobbly Grogu's Force sounds? The moment he starts picking up the frog, he has no control. And you hear that in the sound. It's always present. Anytime the Force is like doing a thing, there's like, I don't know if it's noise or like low passed noise or something like that, where it's just there. It's just always present until it's gone, and then you hear a little whoop. moment.
Mm.
But when Grogu is slowly getting this frog thing over, it's wobbly. Everything I feel like they put attention into it being untamed. And the reason I'm
Untamed and
even
unstable. That's cool.
right, which I'm bringing this up because when Luke uses his hand to force all the frogs out of the river, it's so controlled. It's subtle. It's slow. It goes away.
Mhm.
It appears, and then we hear music. I'm probably the music's just covering it up, but and then it goes away, and it's done.
That's cool. That's
More
cool.
power, more control, kind of a thing. I thought that was really interesting.
I like that a lot.
With these little things that they're doing there, these little sound design moments. I thought that was really, really nice. Yeah, I thought that was nice. And this whole, yeah.
No, go.
Continue. Sorry.
Keep going.
No, I
Keep
was just gonna jump into something else on this planet, kind of a thing, because we were talking about the
Oh.
androids earlier.
Wait, let me just say that I actually really liked that scene. I liked the music during it too. The force wobble. Are you talking about it kind of sounds like hyperspace almost, or it's like
Yeah, it's got this. I kind of set it up. I don't know if it'll read through the stuff.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's almost a slow tone,
Yeah.
and it kind of goes away. And with Grogu, it's got
Yeah, it's like
a little wobble to it.
it's got a little bit like outside of the club feel to it, right?
Yeah,
Like, you know,
it's
like low,
and it's windy.
or like when you plug your ears, it sounds like you're plugging your ears, right?
yeah. That's it.
It's like a low pass. So
Yeah.
if noise is full spectrum sounding like that, me just cutting out the high frequencies, muting them. You know, almost like an interior of an airplane kind of a thing. That's what it feels like
totally.
to me. It's
Sucking
just
everything
there.
out.
And it's just this presence kind of thing. I thought that was really kind of a nice touch.
That's cool.
So this music that's there, which is like basically, which is kind of like the vamp, or whatever.
Yeah.
And there are a few different layers to that, but it's basically, I mean, it's like a Lydian vamp, basically, which
Yeah, it's really
also,
nice.
you know, Yoda's theme is also highly Lydian at the beginning. So it is interesting that, I mean, the similarity there is interesting. It's not like that. It's not an uncommon mode in scoring at all, but it's still like it works. It works nicely there.
Well, are you talking about, you're saying that this accompaniment is similar or eliciting his theme, you saying?
Yeah.
Because that accompaniment is from The Mandalorian, like that actual,
Yeah.
those actual chords in that,
Exactly.
like in that rhythm.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's from The Mandalorian, and it's used
I
here
think
too.
maybe
It's
the first time we
the
hear
track
that,
Snack.
yeah, when he's eating the eggs, right? That's what I was gonna say.
But Yoda's theme also has Lydian chords in it. So.
Yeah. Which is really cool.
A nice little.
Yeah. So Grogu's theme, maybe it was specifically made to be able to do that. I don't know. We don't. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? It's kind of interesting how that works. And then while we're still on this planet, which how long has Luke's been on this planet? Enough time to build himself like a little jump pads with the oxen, right? Kind of things like that. Those weren't just there, right? And where did he get all these androids?
I don't know.
Where did he get all the androids?
Those droids are so cool.
They're so cool,
No,
and the music behind it is.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. And I was like, it's like, no, I was just thinking like Luke Skywalker goes to like, I don't know, like Geonosis or something, like where they're built like a droid warehouse, and he's like, I need like 30 like ant construction
things,
like, because like I mean, there's some of these things that just indicate that they must have happened at some point, like unless Luke built all those. I guess that's possible. He is like, he knows how to work on droids and stuff. Can you imagine
It's
like Luke just building all these androids? Anyway,
possible.
And the androids also like they have like pig snorts on them.
Yeah, they got these funny little sounds and,
Oh my
and
god,
stuff.
I
I love
love
that
them.
when we first introduce it looks like the rock's floating. Like there's
Mhm.
Grogu, there's Luke, and then it's actually this android thing. Um,
that's cool.
I liked
Yes.
that, but I thought the music was really interesting because
too.
it's this constantly like rising structure thing. It's got this. I only got a bit of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I thought
by
it
itself
sounded
it
very
sounds,
Danny Elfman to me. It sounded very
yeah,
like a Tim
and
Burton score, for a Tim Burton movie.
exactly. Because out
Yeah.
of context, this line sounds very dissonant and very half steppy. I mean, it's got more than just half steps, obviously. It's got some
Yeah.
jumps, but it sounds very almost kind of creepy. But what's interesting is that in the context with the chords and all these other things and the strings themselves constantly building on each other with this theme, it sounded like
Yeah.
building. It really
It
sounded
did,
like building blocks
and
to
the
me.
celeste kind of as a
Yeah.
constant underneath it all as well.
It was nice. It's like you're seeing. I thought for a second when I was first listening to, or I was
Yeah.
trying to figure it out, that we were growing from like half steps to whole steps to something else. I was like, okay, that would have been too much of a composer-y me thing. I would have done that. I would have been sitting there like, okay, first half steps, and now it's whole steps because it's getting taller, and now we're gonna make big jumps. But no, I was sadly my hopes and dreams were
That might
dashed
be
and
the progress that it makes over weeks.
over
But
weeks.
here, I feel like what we're getting is more of what it is in the span of like hours, which is more of the rote, like put this and then go back and then this and go back
Mm.
and this and go back. And that's what it sounded like to me. And the sound design really helped as well. It sounded very mechanical. It sounded like, I don't know, turning a mechanical wheel, like, I don't know, almost a
Yeah.
bike wheel or something.
I can't put my finger on it. I don't know if the word is sinister. What's the it's not it didn't sound sinister to me, but it definitely sounded like I'm trying to describe it in a way. Like almost it sounded mysterious. It sounded like there's
Yeah.
a spooky old wizard in the woods building a creepy little castle for him to share his magic with people. It's like a very magical theme, and it's so interesting because Luke Skywalker is this person we know and trust and everything, but it's like we're seeing it through Mando's view. It's like, who is this wizard that is building this creepy little castle in the woods with all his little magical droids bringing it was a very like Harry Potter Dumbledore
Yeah, it sounded
kinda
like Harry
Yeah,
Potter
it was
inspired.
very.
and that's
But
I guess
that's
that's
a good
not
point,
Elfman,
though.
but it like it all made it sound like I feel like if the story was told through Luke's perspective, and if like say like we saw this moment, but it was like we actually did see like Luke go buy all the droids and now he's building it. It would almost be like an adventure theme, like I'm finally doing what I'm doing. But
We would have
instead it
gotten a
makes
big
it
triumphant
yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
or
This was
or
very
like,
much the stranger is what I'm seeing. And that's why it's like he's like, is it it's like the answer like the brooms in Sorcerer's Apprentice.
yeah,
Right? Because it's been dun 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 because it's like the wizard isn't home and Mickey Mouse has enchanted all of the droids to be building things for him.
mhm.
So it was a very elicited those types of feelings for me from those types of media, especially because Mando is like, is that a bench? Like they're building him a bench, right?
Yeah.
It's like some strange things are afoot that like yeah, exactly. I wonder like if the droids like do you think the ant droids decided to build him a bench, or do you think they were instructed ahead of time to build him a bench? Do you think
R2
R2
told him.
communicate? You think
R2 told him
R2
right in the beginning there. Like
he did?
he comes up and right before he shuts down, it's like the last thing he says. I think he's just like, he
Do a
does his
bench.
whistle and then
Make a
yeah,
bench, right?
shuts down.
Yeah. So R2
Which,
is like Mickey Mouse in the Sorcerer's Apprentice, basically.
yeah, uh,
James, you
and
had a good
seeing.
point. Oh,
Oh, sorry.
James, you had a good point that it's sort of like seeing this happen through Mando's eyes, and
Yes.
that the music was Mando's POV, which I would agree with. Like that's how it
Mhm.
came off to me as well. And the fact that it wasn't from Luke's POV, well, it's obvious because Luke wasn't there. But I feel like Luke's music has been absent since The Last Jedi, pretty much.
Yeah.
And the Force theme is used as a reference to a symbolic Luke.
Yeah.
And so that was just the Force theme being used there, which is fine. Like, it obviously makes sense there, and I love the Force theme. It's great. It still is sort of like Luke's role in this is not. It's not. It's not like, this is not Luke's story anymore. This is not Luke's journey. It's
Yeah.
Luke represents the passage of, the training of the Force. So Luke is reduced now to the Force theme, which makes sense, but it's just that there is no clear main character.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
except
Well,
maybe
they,
Mandalorian, but
I guess that's what I'm saying. Is like Luke, in some ways, they usurp that, or like they undermine that role that he has by giving him this weird sense of uncertainty, and that, like you said, it's kind of like you want to see Luke go through this journey too, but it's kind of hindered by what we've already talked about, which is like the delivery of the lines and the delivery of the thing. It's like they flipped that. He went from mysterious weird guy that's training Grogu to like, now we're also seeing Luke's struggle, and you're like, and I was just like, man, it's so weird.
but
to
we
see
don't
this.
see him struggle.
Yeah, we do, because he's like, I don't know what to do, and he's like, and Ahsoka's trying to give him like a
See, I
pep
forgot
talk
there
and
was
everything.
that.
Yeah, you know, we see like, so we see that little moment, but I'm just like, I want to see all this like be followed up in its own show and see like a couple episodes of all this happening. I want to see the Luke training Grogu show, and we can see it all happen. It's like, I don't want to go back to Boba. Now I'm like, I don't want to go back to Boba next week because we only have one episode, and I want to follow up on all this Luke stuff, and I know that they're making us wait for him. I think we're not going to get an answer next week. I mean, who knows? I didn't think we were going to have any more Din centered stories in this show. I thought they were for sure like, we're going to continue with Bo over the last 2 episodes, because that was just a little interlude. But now it's like, I don't know. I really think they're going to wait till Mando season 3 to get any of the follow through on all of this Luke and Grogu stuff. But they could next episode, they could just like not have any Boba Fett in the show, and I like wouldn't be surprised.
At this point. Yeah. Didn't Tamara Morrison joke like earlier last month that this show is going to have its Luke Skywalker moment, like the last one, and then
I think people asked him if his show was going to have a Luke Skywalker moment, and he said, "What are you talking about? It's called the Book of Boba Fett."
Right. And then he said, just wait till episode 7. Obviously this was 6, but he said, wait till episode 7, something really cool or something like that is going to happen. But I was just thinking, if that's what he had said, it's like, no, they what a great joke. Yeah, no, we literally had a Luke Skywalker moment. We were,
yeah. You know what it reminds me of? And sorry, Xanthe, it's like the guy that plays Vision in Marvel in Marvel. He kept teasing all season for WandaVision. He's like, I got to act alongside an actor that I've admired and wanted to work with my whole life, right? And everyone's like, who's going to make the cameo? And it turns out it was Vision had a conversation with another version of Vision, so it was him acting with himself. And so like his whole joke was like that he wanted to act with himself. So yeah, maybe that's like Tamora was like, yeah, we had our Luke Skywalker moment in that we had Luke Skywalker.
We literally had
I think what's going to happen is that Grogu is going to be trained by Ahsoka in the Ahsoka show, because Ahsoka's not a Jedi.
Yeah. I think that'll be.
You think?
Good.
I don't know. That's a prediction. It's unfounded. I don't really have.
And also, speaking about like kind of going back to some stale dialogue here, because I think it plagued everybody in this episode, very much so. I forgive Mando a little bit, because one helmet, you can't see facial expressions, and his character, his whole being for a long time has been just like emotionless, and that was the point. And now he's just kind of starting to figure out like, but I want to see him. Like I can feel the struggle under the helmet, kind of a thing. Personally, I also wonder, like, do Mandalorians have like microphones in their helmets, and they like have speakers?
I have always wondered, how the hell are we hearing? How do
we hear them? Like,
where do we hear him from? What part of his head? What part of his head is making the noise?
There's got to be a speaker somewhere. You know what felt stale to me in a very weird, nitpicky way? That's probably no one cares about. R2-D2. I love R2-D2. With my whole heart. I love the sounds. I love how the sounds were created. I love how it has a place in synthesizer history, how it's so legendary. And I felt like almost like this AI thing with Luke there is someone, sound designer, whoever you were, thank you for all of your hard, amazing, beautiful work throughout all of this. But it really felt like a sound bank. And I'm sure that's what it is. And I'm sure that's what it's been for the last 20 years. It's just been a sound bank. You put it on a keyboard and you go, wow, you know, and just play along like all the familiar, why make more R2D2 sounds. But the whole point behind creating his sound and his voice was to make him react almost like a human. It felt like we know how the sound was made. We have endless amounts of things to recreate R2D2's voice. Why didn't we have real reactions? It really felt stale. Even hearing sounds that I love, every one of those sounds we've heard before. Not a single one of those R2D2 sounds were new. Not that it needs to be, but or at least put in a new way.
Sure, I know what you mean.
I know that's
And
silly and nitpicky there, but just it felt stale again.
yeah,
You know, seeing a character that
um,
I love personally, and then just like, okay, yeah, these are the R2D2 sounds, and they're doing the R2D2 for me, but I don't know.
yeah. I
I
mean,
felt like that was
a
another.
lot of this stuff felt. Yeah, I think that goes with the thing of just like it feels like just placing things that we know are going to be.
Mhm.
It's kind of like why is Luke still wearing all black? Like, bro, like just like. I guess it's probably canon, but it's just like just wear something else other than your
Why?
Return of the Jedi outfit.
Cut your hair, kid.
Wait, why? Why does that matter? Or like, why does it mean meaningful to you?
Because it's almost like I feel. Oh, I'll tell you, like on the other side of things, I feel like I think I'd be affected and I'd buy it more if he wasn't wearing his outfit. Because I can't help but think of what is Justin's talking about right now. It's like, sure, maybe that's just what those are the types of sounds R2D2 makes. Okay. I can reasonably logic. There's no logical reason why Justin has a problem with the sounds that R2 makes. Like in terms of like there's no, that's what R2 sounds like. So that he sounds, but it feels like he's playing the hits. And it feels like the filmmaker made R2 played the hits, right? That's kind of like a good way to maybe describe it almost, right?
Yeah.
It feels like you're getting the R2D2 that we all know exactly how it sounds like. And this is what Luke looks like. It's like he's literally wearing, I understand it's not exactly what he was wearing in Return of the Jedi, but it's like similar enough where it's like, it makes me feel like
trying
I'd buy it more.
Keep it how we remember him.
Yes. And it's just like, put him in a different outfit. So it looks like Luke a couple years after Return of the Jedi. Maybe go figure, he's wearing not all black all the time, you know, like maybe that's, you know, okay, maybe that's like, it's cool. Maybe if they want to explain that's why he's wearing black, because this is like his new Jedi look and whatever. I don't know. But like even Anakin didn't always wear those same robes all the time, you know, like, I don't know. I think I'm getting the same type of feeling with it, which is like, you know, I'm getting the same type of feeling, which is like, it feels like I'm just being given the version of Luke Skywalker that I expect to see, as opposed to the one that like makes more sense for the story in some ways.
Which is weird because we didn't get that with Boba Fett.
Right.
Why mess with him?
Right. Anyway, we're just all set.
I think the CG, I think lack of an actor is going to cut Luke Skywalker's journey short in terms of anything else that happens. Like, I don't want to see very much Luke Skywalker like this, because I want to be roped into a performance.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because it feels like they are going to give us more. Like, it feels like, because they've kind of left it open. Like, Luke is obviously struggling with his journey here, and whether just like we're never going to revisit Luke's like journey like again on screen. Like, no, they're probably going to continuously bring him into these stories. So let's work this out, guys. Let's make it like a little bit more sustainable, you know? Because I don't think this is sustainable. You know?
No, me neither. And I just thought of something kind of scary in terms of precedent, which is like, first of all, I think this needs to be like a much bigger discussion that is not centered around whether we liked it or whether people agreed with the use of the re-speecher or this whole thing or not. But like, I'm sure industry-wide it's already happening, like these discussions about AI being used to kind of replace actors. And it makes me really concerned that like his voice it's Mark Hamill's prior performance is fed into re-speecher. I think, you know, I think it's, I think yeah, it's like a machine learning system. So it learns. I don't know if it's supervised or unsupervised, but like it is. It's like a machine learning thing. Like you know, there's like a neural network, and it's all based on like input from what they feed Mark Hamill saying. And if I remember correctly from just the Mandalorian gallery, they also fed in like Mark Hamill stuff from not Star Wars. Like they just fed in Mark Hamill's voice because the more that it gets, the more it can learn, and the more it can. Yeah, that's basically how AI works. And that is like, first of all, I wonder, does Mark Hamill get paid for the use of his voice feeding this
Oh,
this AI? And like that concerns me on such a level of like I hope SAG-AFTRA is like all over this. Like there need
I hope so
like
too.
it doesn't matter how good the technology is or if it came off cool or whatever. Like it's always the number one thing is not whether it can be pulled off or whether it's cool or whether people personally liked it. It's like, who is this affecting and what are the like long-term ramifications of this? And to be able to use like someone's likeness to have an AI like present them later when they're dead or when they're just, or to not hire them, like that is very disturbing to me. I don't know their arrangement. Maybe they're paying Mark Hamill royalties for every time that they feed the neural network. Probably not, but maybe. But these are things that like I want people outside of the industry to talk about too, because they need to be part of the conversation. Because otherwise, consumers like us, like or people who are not inside of it, will just I don't know, do hot Twitter takes without considering actually who is impacted and the laws that go into things. Like, yeah, I mean, I was just listening, like, there's this like AI podcast that I listened to, and there was like a lawyer on there the other day, and he was talking about how he thinks there should be like companies that use AI or he thinks that there should be more tax breaks on payroll, on like hiring people, and higher taxes on like capital or I don't know what, I forgot what the term was, but for like having assets like AI, whatever, to make it basically incentivize. What am I talking about? To basically incentivize companies to keep hiring actors, because it's always going to be a cheaper to who use the machines. It's going to, if not yet, like it's going to increase. Like when the technology hits, it scales and puts a lot of people out of work and changes things. Like it can change things really rapidly unless there are thoughtful considerations already implemented and ready to deploy when necessary, because people don't develop technology with all that in their head.
We're heading towards the Star Wars singularity, where Star Wars will be created by robots instantly. And on Disney Plus will just be constantly populated by new canon.
It is already like that, James.
Happening. Yeah, it's already happening.
That all the shows will be directed by Dave Filoni bots and written and uploaded to the cloud and implanted into our brains.
This has already started by the time streaming services became studios as well. When streaming services have the ability to track exactly what users are hovering over, spending time on, and then use that to develop their like when the platform that delivers the content is also the producer of the stories and has access to all of your intimate, not only data about whatever you wrote in your diary, just your user preferences, and they can use that to hyper personalize things to such an like. Anyway, we got off on a tangent, but that's what. But
Yeah.
I have very strong feelings about like technology and AI, so we should probably move on to another subject.
Yeah.
But it was very relevant in this episode.
For sure, yeah. Well, right now it's with Mark Hamill, who's a very powerful actor, but I guess the point is that tomorrow it won't be. Tomorrow there will be an actor that doesn't have as good of a deal that Mark Hamill probably has for this AI, or at least a deal that, like, Mark Hamill is probably able to negotiate a deal with Lucasfilm that makes him feel okay with them using his voice, or whatever. Or he probably doesn't care. The point is that once it starts to be able to be as usable all the time, then it will be able to be used to exploit and take advantage and replace actors. So yeah, of course, Mark Hamill probably got paid, and that's why we're not hearing about it. But that's not going to be the case tomorrow when it's not a person like Mark Hamill that it's replacing, right? So
Yeah.
I
I'm
mean, we
sure
got
Mark Hamill probably likes it. I mean, I think
yeah,
personally, if
I'm
I
sure.
if
I'm
I
sure he's
minted a character, it probably would bother me more to have me recast. To be honest,
so when we kind of did this in Rogue One and we resurrected Peter Cushing,
yeah.
right?
yeah.
That wasn't a recent voice, was it? That was somebody imitating him, was it? Do we know?
Yeah. That's definitely that was an actor. I think almost assuredly so. This is the first time I can remember them doing something like this with Star Wars ever.
They did it in Mandalorian too, but
I just mean like the Luke Skywalker
Oh.
voice.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Let's see here.
Anyway,
Ooh,
there's other stuff that happened in this episode than Luke Skywalker. So
I was
what
gonna
else?
say, speaking about voices,
Oh,
because
let's talk about Cad Bane.
I
Yeah.
want to talk about Cat Bane so badly. Redesign aside, I don't want to get into that because he did have a small amount of a redesign on his live action persona.
Hmm.
Yeah,
He's a
for
lot
sure.
older too.
A lot older. He's a lot older. I mean, yeah, a lot older, and also what a great entrance. I mean, did he plan to just like park all the way out, wait until Mando?
Yeah.
Left,
I love how
and
he
then
just I had to
was
rewind it to be like, did he really like just appear the minute that Mandalorian like Mando disappeared? I guess so, but it
then
is
would have
Star Wars.
stayed for 5 more minutes.
Yeah, he would have been okay. But it's like, that's how movies are made.
So we had someone as a stunt person play the physical character, but Corey Burton still voiced Cad Bane, from my understanding, and he's been voicing Cad Bane for a while.
Yeah, he's great.
Why over time have we gotten rid of
The metallic?
his metallic? So here it is. This is what he does. So this is what it's been for a very long time. Is they've got this? It's not a vocoder specifically. They've got amplitude modulation on his voice. So that means my voice as I talk rapidly turns off and on.
Yeah.
In such a way. So as an example, very quickly, hopefully this comes through. Hello.
Cool.
Is that coming through at all?
Yeah.
The spice must flow, which he was so close into saying the spice must keep running, right? But this is what they did for his voice in all the shows, and then all of a sudden, we don't have that. And we also we talked about this during Bad Batch too. They got rid of that during Bad Batch as well, and but he still had a very like low kind of guttural like fry. Everybody on chat, do this. We all know how to do this, right? A vocal fry. Do we all know how to fry our voice? Don't use your vocal cords. Just what is your vocal cords, but no sound. Kind of a thing. If you want to do the Orange County Malibu thing, oh my god, it's the vocal fry. But that's what they were doing with his voice for so long. It had a very fry-like quality, and then this one, again, different director, live action. We've already got differences between.
Oh, it's not a different director. It's Dave Filoni.
You're actually, yeah, no, you're right. That's true thing. But it's like the Billie Eilish effect. No, that's whispering. But the and she vocal fries. It's but
It's more,
it's I like the kind of autotune in it is what Blue Pig said. Yeah, that's this amplitude modulation as well. So amplitude meaning volume.
Was
in a
it?
sense. It's
Oh my
literally,
gosh, I didn't notice that there were new. I didn't scroll down. Okay, now I thought the last chat was like a while ago. Oh, sorry.
it's okay.
Was there?
So
Didn't there used to be like a ring modulator type of thing on there too? Like I feel like since Clone Wars, it's changed every time. Like, and we talked about it during Bad Batch. Like, it was different from Bad Batch, from Clone Wars, and now it's different from both of them. Like, definitely less metallic. It almost sounded like a doubler before. Like, it sounded like a harmonized voice before. I don't know. Like before, it was such a distinct, definitely metallic-y
Very electronic,
layer.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
tremolo, electronics. It's the Auric fonts. Yes, yeah, the tremolo. I know what you're talking about. I was just being
You know what
mean.
I like? I have my theory. It's
Huh.
not a real theory, but it's a joke. Is that they like deleted the Logic channel preset for for Cad Bane, and they like
Yeah,
can't figure out what they did. They're like, God, what did we do in Clone Wars? Why did we delete that Logic preset for Cad Bane?
yeah. But
Like they
it's
don't
just
remember.
of all the other things that they do in post, this seems like to be like one of the easiest ones. It's like, okay, let's turn
It
on the
was a
plugin.
decision. It wasn't someone like, I
No, it
think we
had to
can
have
say,
been.
yeah, this wasn't
It
someone
had to
just
have been
forgetting.
a super decision of like slowly changing this character's voice over. I'm sure Corey Burton doesn't mind as long as he's voicing the character, but I'm curious. It's like, where did the thing go? Oh, we're not doing that anymore. Okay, let's move on. Kind of a thing. It's just what it was. But yeah, it just feels like an interesting decision to me, especially after we did the twins, the
Right.
huts, and those were super like processed in their own way.
Right.
Um,
So
I don't know.
is this voice more like, would you say that Cad Bane's voice is more similar to the Batch Cad Bane? Okay, if you had three of them in a spectrum, if you had Clone Wars Cad Bane, Bad Batch Cad Bane, I almost said Mando, but it's actually Book of Boba Fett. Boba Fett Cad Bane. Would you put these two closer together than Clone Wars and Bad Batch, or would you put like Clone Wars closer to Boba Fett? What would be the spectrum there?
For me, it's the voice is closer to what happened in Bad Batch. In Clone
Here in
War,
Book of Boba Fett.
in Book of Boba Fett, it's closer to what happened in Bad Batch, because in Clone Wars, that's when the ring modulation, the VADA, whatever they were using specifically, was the most present.
I think
just
it's
want
been
to
a
say,
steady progression. I think for
Of
me, Bad
yeah.
Batch was closer to Clone Wars than Book of Boba was to Bad Batch. But I think they're pretty evenly spaced. Like each one has been a pretty significant change, and
Mhm.
with Bad Batch definitely being in the middle
Yeah.
is what I can
And I
say.
don't, yeah, and Blue Pig, I don't, I
Yeah, I
like
like them.
Cad Bane's voice. I think
well,
Corey
I
Burton
want
does
to
a
say
great job.
that this whole scene for me, and I went back and I didn't remember to listen to the voice and like notice it. But I went back and listened to the score and the different scenes between this scene and the showdown between Hunter and Cad
So
Bane,
different.
and it's
Mhm.
so different. And first of all, Cad Bane is terrifying in this scene. Like to me, he reminds me of the mouth of Sauron, like
Yeah.
from the deleted scenes of Return of the King. Like
Mhm.
he's got this terrifying ghoulish effect. Like whereas in Clone Wars he's less of a ghoul and more of like a just like a badass alien, like he's more, and like even the sound design, like in Bad Batch, it's like you hear like this like like actual guitar, like doing these like super tropey stuff, and there's tropey stuff going on. Yeah, you hear these like
Super
really,
Western, super,
and it's just
yeah.
so on the nose. This feels like it's obviously this is such a trope. I mean, even the way they shot it and everything, but the sound design is way more menacing. It's way scarier. They make Cad Bane like look like a monster in this show, and like he looks terrifying. And I've seen some of the people that have recut his look online. That's been the big talk this whole week. Is like, oh my god, he looks so different. But in some ways, he looks like way more terrifying in this
It's
show. And
scary.
it gives a great, and the way he talks, like it takes him like the way he talks. It takes him like a couple seconds to come out with his next sentence every time. He's like silent for a little bit. He's like, you should have never got rid of your armor, and
It's
it's
just
like,
That's a
and it's
good
like
vocal fry.
the way that he's
Yes.
talking, is way more. You're like, what is it going? And he's like, he's thinking more. Whereas in Bad Batch, he's just like, here, little lady, I'm here to pick you up. I'm a bounty hunter. Now you're putting the two and two together. He's got this like, he's like so on the nose of like a Western cowboy. But in this show,
Mhm.
he's like much more of like a mysterious monster to be reckoned with. And I think all of that is on purpose. And I think his voice losing some of the alienness and having more of a guttural, like just like organic monstery sound is probably all part of it, you know?
It
Are you
must
all
be,
ready
yeah.
for Xanthe's unpopular opinions?
Yeah,
Yeah, what's up?
always.
I'm not like a huge fan of Cad Bane. I don't really care about him that
I
much. And
Me neither, and now I'm much more of a big fan because of how he's portrayed in this episode, but continue.
interesting. Okay. And I wasn't that excited to see him
Yeah.
in Book of Boba. I
Yeah.
didn't hate seeing him. I just and for and it wasn't and people who have not been excited to see Cad Bane tend to fall into the camp of they just haven't watched the other stuff, so it's a new reference to them.
Yeah, okay.
And that's obviously not the case with me. I knew who Cad Bane was, and he's never been that exciting to me. I think actually what made him more exciting to me was his rivalry with Fennec in the Bad Batch. That alone, that's what raised him in my books for me, was the Bad Batch. But here, I think I think it's just a me thing. I think it's because Cad Bane, through and through, this entire time is such obviously a Clint Eastwood, like obviously a Western a trope or whatever. I think it comes down. What?
Yeah, I saw that. Sorry.
Oh, Adam Sandler.
Ow.
What it comes down
Stop
to,
looking at me, Marshall.
it comes down.
Oh, Cad Bane, that's too much. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
So my brother watched this episode and hasn't seen Clone Wars, and he wasn't he thought the episode was fine, but he didn't like love it either. But he did like Cad Bane, and he didn't know who Cad Bane was prior to that. And I think what it just comes down to is like Cad Bane doesn't work on me because I'm not attracted to the West. Like the Western trope doesn't ever make me excited. I don't like what I don't enjoy Westerns. I just don't really get it. It's not like, and it's not because it's a trope, because other types of tropes do work on me. It's just the Western trope doesn't do much for me. And so that's why I'm not excited about like pretty much any bounty hunters actually. And Cad Bane. So I can recognize that even if they did it really well or whatever, because as a thing, the Westerns don't do much for me. Cad Bane just, no matter how well they do it, like, I don't know, like I can recognize that it was shot really cool looking like a Western and showdown-y and whatever. And
so many times we can see a shootout and like, it's like pretty, there's no way to like, what's the word? Like reinvent what we like. Someone's going to get shot very quickly.
But if you like shootouts and that is like an exciting thing for you, then that might work every time. Just like for me, I love Jedi training montages.
Stuff,
So, that it's, that's what it comes down to it. And that's all it is that's the only quote unquote danger of relying on tropes for like complete characters. Like, is that if you have to hope that your audience will be on board with the trope. And if you pick a really popular one like Westerns, then chances are they will. But
they're definitely not as popular as they were like in the 70s. It's like Westerns are definitely not. There's this really interesting graph which is like shows the most popular genres throughout time, and like Westerns had like a very crazy peak in one time and then like bottomed out. Like it's like they used to be a much more interesting genre to people than they are now. They've definitely, they got to find new ways of doing it. Like, the cowboys are robots, like Westworld. They got to find fresh ways to do it. Like, instead, we have a blue monster with tubes in his face and red eyes, and he growls.
But simply having characters that are cowboys or whatever, like there's so much else surrounding it. But anyway, Cad Bane was fine, and the Pikes were not. I thought the Pikes were not fine to me. Oh, for the same reason, by the way, Cobb Vanth doesn't work on me, and I feel bad saying that, but Cobb Vanth doesn't do anything for me.
It's a hardcore Western trope within a series that was based off of Westerns in various ways.
And the fact that the Pikes were running their own spice really sets them down in my eyes too. Like the Pikes, I can't take Are they seriously this big crimes? Like, I understand that they're this big crime syndicate, but they're running their own spice, like with their whole getup
Well,
and
those are
everything.
yeah. Well, those are probably yeah. Well, in the Get Up, that's a little obvious, but they must be these foot soldiers that Fennec Shand said
Yeah.
that they all needed. These are just the foot soldiers
Okay,
of
true.
of that thing.
True.
I mean,
They talked more than Grogu.
why would the leaders of the Pike thing go down to Tatooine, do this dangerous mission, and then go plant a bomb in
Yeah,
theoretically the Pike?
those are
Plant a
definitely
bomb in
the
Spice in
thugs.
itself is a trope, and that's I
you
think
know.
why also the spice running as a trope is like, because it's a trope, it works as a stand-in for this valuable thing. But I need more help to know why exactly this spice is valuable, why people want it, what the spice is doing for people, who they're giving it to. Like, I
The
need
drug,
to be
isn't it?
more yeah, which is it works
No,
as a
that's
stand-in
that's
because it's a trope, but it doesn't do much then, like give me the disc image feeling again, where it's like, okay,
yeah.
yeah, no, I get it. Like we're doing a
Well, I'll
drug
just
thing.
say
I get it.
again, I feel this boils down to how it's kind of like with all these things that aren't landing enough. It's kind of like in Breaking Bad, we get to see one story that's like being played out interestingly, and you get to see meth, right, like in that show, and you get to see how it's made. You get to see like it's like you get all the ins and outs of how it affects people. If they're going to tell a story that's like motivated by what you're talking about, spice,
Do it
then
like
we should
Breaking
spend a
Bad.
little bit. We should
Yeah.
focus only on those characters in that story, not go like let's spend 2 episodes with Luke Skywalker.
Yeah,
Like
you remember
like
Breaking Bad and the stuff
right,
about, you remember what stories are like when they
right,
meaningfully
right.
discussed drugs. Now take all of that you remember, and now we're just gonna give you a reference to spice, but like hopefully you keep all those same associations and understand the
Yeah,
gravity of it immediately.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good luck, Disney, on making your for all ages space Breaking Bad. Good
Space
luck.
Breaking Bad, yes. Space Godfather Breaking
I
Bad
mean, there's a
thing.
scene in the High Republic, no spoilers, in Light of the Jedi, where there's like a graphic depiction of them doing drugs, which I found was like really interesting to be put into a Star Wars book, where they're like, it's like they describe them like snorting it up their nose and like them tripping out and high and stuff, and listen to like punk music, and I was just like, this seems like pretty adult to be put in this book, but okay.
Well, I mean,
Um,
and even in Book of Boba Fett, we got our little hallucinogenic lizard scene. So like we could have done a little bit more with the spice,
Right.
But that was a lizard. That wasn't a drug. That was, I'm sure.
Somebody needs to cut the end of the show. Instead, it goes into the Breaking Bad theme. Brown, like because he like kicks over the drug at the end. That's this whole at the beginning of the show
Yeah.
did feel like a Breaking Bad like intro scene. Like it was pretty interesting in some ways. Yeah. I wonder who would be Saul Goodman in Book of Boba Fett. You know?
Oh no.
Who would be his space lawyer, right?
It would be the
It'd be Mando, because he
major,
has a spin-off.
yeah, or the Major Domo.
Yeah,
I
that's
can see
right.
the Major Domo being kind of crazy.
By the way, that's another example of that whole scene with back on Tatooine briefly
Yeah.
for that session. That whole thing was like directed so awkwardly. It was so awkwardly. Like I felt like
Any of Fennec's
everyone
speeches.
saying their line was just like, okay, it's my turn. Like the major domo had like one line, right? And he does his thing, and he's like, does his line, like it. It really felt to me like doing lines, not of spice, but like of story.
Huh. Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
Did Tamara Morrison have any lines? No, he
No.
didn't. No, he did. He gave a look and a nod. He did his thing. Didn't spoke up. Actually, quick question. Going back real quick to the club. Besides it being what 80s rock music and
Depeche
80s
Mode.
rock drum and very Depeche Mode.
Yeah, I had a little bit of that.
And space at oboe kind of a thing. And we got shots
Which
of
I liked. You're
yeah,
talking about
which
the
was-
sanctuary toward the end.
Yeah.
Yeah,
when-
this story. So we got a little shot of of our drummer and our space oboist, which I thought was cool.
Which was very purposeful. Who they did not show in that
I
band.
was-
I went back and watched again, and I was like, they would have shown him if they wanted us to think that he was in there.
That's what I wanted to ask. Did we just off Max Rebo?
No, they would have
No,
shown.
I went
him.
back for that. I did the same thing too. I was like, "There's got to be a frame. There's got to be a little blue trunk. There's got to be something." Did we just
genuinely
off
keep
Max
forgetting
Rebo?
that place blew up.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if it was because of where it was in the I don't know. James, how did you say something about it, like you texted me and I was like, "Wait, that just happened?" Like,
Yeah,
We
I don't
said
know.
that
I
at the
don't know
beginning
how
of
you.
the episode
I don't
too.
know how you missed it either. It's pretty
okay,
clear.
did anyone else kind of miss it or like at least forget about it? Like, okay, it's a me thing. Okay.
No. Well, I listen. Like, there's a
It
lot
seemed like
going
an
on in this
afterthought.
episode. I can see that if you're like being overwhelmed by the whole thing, like I can see missing that particular sequence and not really getting it. But
Yeah. I think
you
it's
know,
because
I
we don't
mean,
see it happen. We just, you know what it is? It's because I wasn't, that's not what I was thinking of when they're like holding stuff. Like I did, and then I saw an explosion, but they didn't show the inside exploding. They cut to an exterior shot. And I don't
that's a
think like,
classic mafia movie thing. Classic
Mhm.
mafia movie. It's
okay.
like, what? Where are you going? And then they go to the outside and you see the whole thing. It's like this is like happens in the first season of The Sopranos when they blow up the restaurant.
Oh, this is, yeah,
Um,
which is I've never seen. So
yeah.
I think I just don't know the sanctuary well enough to have been able to understand from the exterior shot that that's what was happening.
Yeah.
Plus, it just
I do
seemed so
appreciate that
weird.
it's so funny that they showed the band and they like when I went and back and watched it, I was like, oh, there's because they really showed us like they showed us one person in the band after another cut that way. They were like, robot drummer, Bith on the oboe, another Bith on the oboe, back to the main action. It was like they like showed everyone with their own shot basically to show you none of these people are the people the guy that you will care about, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and now they're about to die, so, but Jennifer
Yeah.
Beals, what's her character? Garza Fwib, come on. Hopefully she'll make it out. Maybe they'll show the wreckage next semester.
Next semester.
Next episode, and she'll be there.
Yeah.
You know,
Something tells me that at least her character is still alive.
because she witnessed the Pikes, right?
Uh-huh.
Like in some way, maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
I hope so because
She's
we
awesome.
don't get enough. I mean, we didn't even get. We didn't get. I'm not even
Wasn't it?
sad that she's gone because we didn't know her much, but it feels like kind of a waste to get rid of her so
Sure.
fast before letting us get to know her more.
Yeah.
But okay,
Yeah,
don't know.
I hear you.
Different
Cool
gig.
sequence though.
I did
I
like
liked it.
I did actually like the Depeche Mode music that was happening in there.
Yeah.
Dude, I just want to see more of that stuff though. That like criminal on like warfare. Oh man, I love that stuff.
Yeah, it felt like that scene could have
More
been
training
more effective.
montages for me.
Well, no, right. That scene could have been more effective had it happened like episode 2 after just meeting this character. You're right.
Right?
We wouldn't have spent time getting to know them. We're just like, oh, it's this cool new person, and then boom, you're like, oh,
There are
that
too
would
many
have been.
things this episode. That
There's
supposed to
so
hold
much.
space for
I'm
Ahsoka, for Luke.
saying,
Grogu.
I know,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe. Yeah.
So I have a conspiracy theory about this show.
Okay. Every episode you have a new
Okay.
one. We're ready.
I feel like this is what I think. Okay, I think that Book of Boba Fett. Here's my conspiracy theory. It was originally a 5-episode show. Okay, and it was going to be a tight 5. Okay, it's going to be a tight 5, and it was going to give us everything that we expected. Not everything we expected, but it was just going to give us like a tight story that follows up everything with Boba Fett, right? But then Lucasfilm was like, we got to tease those other shows that we got coming up. Okay. I'll green light you for 2 other episodes. It means you got to give Mando his own episode, and you got to give Luke Skywalker his own epised, and then fit everything around those 2 other episodes. And then they're like, okay, and then so they like drew some stuff out. It kind of feels like these 2 other episodes, like these 2 episodes feel like they were like, put in, but that's totally wrong, and I'm sure I'm completely incorrect about it. But that's my conspiracy. That's why it's a conspiracy theory. Like it almost feels like everything that involves Boba Fett was all part of its own show, even the Cad Bane stuff and all that stuff. But then they plopped everything else in.
Yeah, it's almost like they could have had this entire series just be one episode of different characters throughout what we just saw in the last couple things. Like, here's the Luke episode. Here's a Boba Fett episode. Oh, remember he was on Tatooine at the end of Mandalorian? Okay, he's doing great. on to the next
Yeah.
thing. Oh, remember this thing. Oh, remember this thing. You know, that was
Like a
it could
Tales
have-
of Tatooine episode or something, or a show.
could have
You know,
been that. Could have been
Yeah.
that.
I think your conspiracy theory. I don't know. I'm on. It's
It's
probably
the only.
wrong.
I would be more. It's probably wrong, but I would be
I
more
know.
inclined to believe. I would be more inclined to get on board if Bryce Dallas Howard's episode wasn't so good, because it doesn't.
Right.
Her episode
right.
didn't feel like something that was just like
Yeah.
a forced commercial effort. Like hers felt
Yeah,
like.
and I'm not saying that the show, like the shows themselves, like, but it feels like then they put concerted effort to like, let's write these
Right.
episodes, like let's figure out what they would be. Like, I'm not saying they felt like half butted.
Yeah, they didn't say, you know
Uh,
what, we need these episodes,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
don't worry about it. Just
Yeah.
no. I'm sure even if
I'm-
they told Bryce to do that, she would have been like, no.
I bet we're gonna see, once we see Mando season 3 and we see even season 2 of Book of Boba Fett, we see the Ahsoka show. I bet that this show, like all these little moments, I feel like it'll be good that they happened in this show and not in those shows. Like I think that Mando season 3 is gonna be served well that we saw Mando go on this journey before we get to there, so then we don't have to waste time on some of this time. Similarly with Ahsoka's thing, maybe that show will be served well by having these little moments of her in this show, because we got to get that out of the way before we go and see. You know, it's almost like these things had to be told. However, Book of Boba Fett as a show has suffered from it, right?
I want to bring up one other one instrument that we heard, and I'm wondering if it's going to be like an Ahsoka sound. It's that like spitting flute type of
Yeah.
thing when
Oh, the
Ahsoka showed up.
Fiora?
The what?
Yeah.
Like the thing that we did last time. I think that was
A Mando sound.
yeah, I thought that was that was just associated with Mando just
Oh,
being
okay.
like, oh, I've got draw weapon kind of a thing.
Oh, okay. It was
I don't
like
think
when
that's
he's like, "What are you
specific.
doing here?" And then we see her.
Right. Yeah, that was the same instrument that we talked
Okay.
about last episode.
Okay, so
kind
it's
of
not
representing
it's not
him.
Ahsoka one.
No, that would have been good for Ahsoka, but no, I think it works great with Mando because we've established his flutiness.
Cutting Room Floor has a. Oh, first of all, I want to say Cutting Room Floor said he had a side hustle, Max Rebo, and let me just tell you, all musicians have a side hustle. They're undoubtedly Max Rebo has multiple venues that he plays at. Let's just say.
Yeah.
So
That
definitely,
works.
yeah. And
Probably
then
teaching too. He's probably got a couple of private students.
Yeah, I can't make it tonight, guys. I had to reschedule. You know, it's been
He's probably been
Sanctuary's
Zoom
not
teaching during
paying
the
enough.
pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say, I wanted to comment on this though, y'all, as a teacher. I really appreciate it. Like some people might think that some of Luke's teaching methods might felt like they were just inserted fan service. You know, when
Like
he talks
what?
about like do not, or like don't try, do, right? Or like, you know, you just like there's little things in there like are like very on the nose of like direct things that Yoda has said and things like that. Or like, you know, he's actually does like all the flips and training things that like with Grogu on his back. And so you could view that as like, oh, this is just like fan service, him like literally quoting Yoda, right? It's kind of like Mando continuing to use his catchphrase all the time, which is like, I can bring you in cold, I can bring you in hot, you know? Like, you know how Mando talks.
Yeah, you know.
Mando talks.
Yeah, exactly.
all the time. He says that every episode.
Everybody is Adam Sandler.
Every episode.
I can bring you in. Anyway, but anyway, I just like to appreciate as a teacher just how often we do that. Like I'll find myself quoting my teachers, and I'll find myself like, you know, just delivering exact lectures and thoughts that my teachers have given me, exact ways that I've taught techniques, etc. That's just a real thing. It's a really realistic thing. Be like, oh, this is the perfect example for me to like say that one thing that my teacher said to me that one time, you know? Do it all the time. And it was definitely relatable to see Luke just basically, he has no, and the thing is like I've taken pedagogy classes. He hasn't. Like no one taught Luke how to teach this stuff at all. Right? He has no he is like completely on his own. He's a terrible teacher, you know? He's like basically, is that all you got to his student? Like he has no way of like facilitating or assessing prior knowledge no way of assessing prior knowledge or anything. It's like he completely lacks any type of pedagogy because he hasn't learned it. He's never, so just to see him struggle in that way is really interesting and really on the nose and real,
I changed my major so I wouldn't have to do pedagogy.
Pedagogy is a wonderful, beautiful thing if you learn it from the right people. It's a
Yeah.
really interesting. It's almost like it feels like a complete science. Pedagogy. It's a really
I know. That's
amazing
why I was
thing
too
if you
scared to do it. Didn't want to do it.
I feel like you'd probably really enjoy it if he had it taught to you the right way. Because it's
No, I don't think so. Maybe though. We never. I guess we don't know.
we don't
'cause
know.
I never did
We
it.
don't know.
Yeah.
We'll never know.
Uh,
How about the like just like how many themes did you count in the last scene of this episode with the decision? How many themes?
We had Yoda. We had the Force.
We have Luke's new theme, right? He's got. By the way, we haven't really talked too much about like Luke's theme that he was given in the Mandalorian, which is not a pre-existing Luke theme. It's
what are you talking about?
Boom, bum, 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 boom. But that whole thing with the it's a friend on Mandalorian season 2
Okay.
soundtrack. So that is like Luke's theme that he's been given, when he's slashing through the droids in the last episode of Mando. So we haven't really talked much. He's given that theme a number of times, and it's kind of an interesting theme. It's kind of a spooky theme and not really so much of a uplifting theme in some ways. But anyway, that plays a little bit in this scene. Yoda's theme plays when the lightsabers whipped out. Grogu's theme is played. His Lydian theme, his little Lydian thing.
Yeah.
What else?
All of them.
Yeah, what else is in there?
Force.
The Force theme. The Force theme,
yeah.
right? Really, I thought this scene was very well scored. I was very happy with this.
Are you talking specifically about the end?
Yeah, the decision scene in the temple. Yeah. The very last scene. I really enjoyed how all these themes were I thought they were very well crafted together. I thought.
Yeah, and I like how it ended in that kind of unison where it really felt like like there was no distinction of what direction Grogu was going to go in. I liked that. Like they could have added a little hint. They could have done it. I mean, clearly they want us to guess, right? But they really, what's going to happen? There was no extra thing. Like it's like if they would have been like unison theme, what's he going to choose? And you just hear like the flute, the Mando flute happening in the background. It's like
you mean like they did in episode 4 or whatever it was, right?
What are you gonna choose?
Well, guess what's gonna happen,
right?
I'm glad they didn't do that in this episode. What was weird about this scene being beautifully scored, I agree with you. All these themes that we're familiar with, and just getting to know this big decision. Our hearts are breaking. I got to see my little chainmail, not on him yet, but I'm still hoping. A lightsaber that's too big for him. That'll take another 300 years for him to be able to hold.
Right.
And then we're like, oh, what's going to happen? Silence. Back into Boba Fett. Oh, right. This was a Boba Fett episode.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
right.
Like,
a Boba Fett show.
That's really
that was weird to me. That was very bizarre. I was talking about things throwing us out of everything. That I think that's what did it to me the most. It was like at the end you're like, oh right.
Oh yeah.
And then the whole theme plays and you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's really strange. What was I gonna say? Okay, let's talk about the decision for a second. This is kind of what I was saying with like the Luke thing. So first of all, Luke even says it, and it's almost like he used it like to make one point, which I feel like he made the opposite point, which he's like, by the time you will live, a short time for you would be a lifetime for Mando. So I'm like, then why does he go hang out with Mando for the rest of Mando's life and then come back and study to be a Jedi? Luke, you started this crap when you were 18, and you turned out perfectly fine. So why is it any different for this poor guy? Like, let him go be with his dad for his dad's the rest of his dad's short life, and then he can go back and be a Jedi. What are you like? I don't I'm missing the whole it's almost like Luke's being selfish, almost like it's like Grogu. I don't think Yeah, I think so.
He flat
I
out said
think so.
you could either be a loser or you could be cool and be my first student. That's what that whole thing sounded like. It's like
That's what
you
it
can either
feels
do
like.
this and forsake everything you've ever known,
Yeah, but it's like,
or
no, actually, Grogu will be
you can be my
alive
first student.
way longer than Din Djarin. He might as well go like, it's very clear to
Yeah.
me, like, I'm gonna go hang out with my mortal father while I only age to the whatever, like their relative age of like 12 or whatever I would be
I
by
can't tell
then.
if you're kidding or not. Are you kidding?
Am I kidding that he should do that? Actually, I do believe that. I don't believe in this whole like forsake your family. Like there's no reason why Grogu can't go hang out with Din for the rest of Din's life and then come back and be like, why does he need to choose being a Jedi? Like why? Why does he need to do that?
No, he doesn't. But but if I wait, okay, we're being serious. Okay, so I can't really imagine like putting like even just because Grogu lives a long time doesn't mean that his life doesn't still have a trajectory that would benefit from having like some clarity in his path. Like he can't just like because he's going to ostensibly live a long time, be
Uh-huh.
like, I'll come back to training by just living out someone else's life first, and then I want to hang out with this other thing. I want to do this other thing, so I'll just wait.
I'm
I'll
not saying it's
wait
an
to
other.
outlive. But
I don't think
it,
it's living out someone else's life. It's like literally having someone that's important to him in his life while he's able to. But Luke is basically
but that's an
essentially saying,
attachment, and I don't mean in a Jedi way. I mean like even like in a human like it becoming a Jedi or training in the Force, like that should be something that comes before he goes off on these other missions. I mean, and I don't mean
why
this.
does he need to be a Jedi?
He doesn't need to be, which is why he's getting a choice.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to be a Jedi.
But
Ahsoka's
there's
not even
also
a Jedi.
but there's not. It's not a binary choice that he needs to make here. I guess is my point.
I mean,
is like
I don't think it has to be, but you can't you can't be like training at the same time that you're doing like Yoda can't or Yaddle. Yeah, Yoda, Yaddle, Grogu. Grogu can't be
yeah.
in two places at once. So like, you know, even if he's thinking I'm just gonna train here for a little bit, and then I don't know, like
This is my
I'm not
point.
thinking of like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks with Din, like
This is my point of
to
like why this seems off from Luke is like why are we hung up with this Jedi dogma that
because we're
it's
missing
either
we're
or.
not interpreting what we don't know what it means to have attachments. Like Luke might be misrepresenting what like it might not be a problem for someone like Grogu or for anyone to have relationships, but attachments might be a different thing, and it might speak to the order in which these relationships form. Grogu is a child still, or Grogu is a baby,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the first like it's different that Luke had his attachments like later in or you know had his went through everything later in life after already being like developed. Grogu is like this really impressionable like trauma like child who like
Huh.
everything is imprinting on him right now. So like sure he can you know he can keep doing all this stuff that's it and but I try to think of like what is the point of the Jedi tenet of no attachments, and I think when we say things like no attachments or we hear people say no attachments, I think it's easy to jump to conclusions about what that means, and since they're not defining it always, we can only guess, and you know I think
Okay.
the Jedi through the different eras interpret it in different ways. Like I don't think no attachments has to necessarily mean no relationships, because think about it, the Jedi have relationships with each other. Like their friendship.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah. No, I know, but I don't think like
Well, we should
it's
also wonder if that's healthy. Do we think it's healthy for somebody of Grogu's age to not have someone that he's able, because we talk about attachment theory and child psychology and how that's really important for someone's emotional development to have
agree.
attachments. And is it okay for someone like Luke Skywalker who grew up with attachments? He grew up with his uncle and his aunt as a father and mother figure, guiding him and ostensibly raising him and being around to be that figure in his life to the point where he was able to potentially develop emotionally healthy. Is that okay for Luke Skywalker? Is that okay for Luke Skywalker to take like to basically, you know, like advocate for Grogu growing up without that, because Luke's not going to be his father figure. Luke is going to be his trainer, and he's gonna create that distance away from him, and he's gonna not provide that type of care that a father figure or a parental figure is going to give him, right?
What do you think of the Jedi if we were not talking specifically about this it's special situation with Luke? It's tough because it's everything's new. But what if
Yeah.
this were an established like temple already with an infrastructure and a lot of younglings already training there, and you're
Yeah.
taking a new baby in? Would you still think that's to me, thinking about it in terms of that is like, well, the Jedi temple is your family. That's your attachment. So would that be more
Right.
okay for you?
So I've always, if I'm saying that there's like we don't know, because we never get to see it on screen. They talk a big game about how there's no attachments, but we don't know what it's like we don't see on screen like how they actually raise Jedi, right? We don't actually get to see a baby being like, we hear this thing is like Anakin somehow is too old to be a Jedi in Phantom Menace. But when I was a kid, I was like weirded out by that. I was like, wait, he's supposed to be even younger than this when he starts his training? Like what are these kids' childhoods even like, if they're just like because there's a sense of like safety and play and love and attachment and physical affection and like things that are things that are healthy for a young child to experience, right? And if these children are not experiencing this while they're growing up in a Jedi temple, right? Like, yeah, I gotta wonder if that's like a healthy environment for somebody, right? Like, I even if it's the Holy Jedi Temple on Coruscant, like, I'm not gonna say that my personal values endorse that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I, in many ways, I think that's like kind of the point of the prequels, is like, look at how messed up this whole thing is, right?
See, I don't think that's the point of the prequels, and I don't think that's even. I think that's where I I think all those things that you said are important, or like I can
Yeah.
get on board with those things being important, and the fact that we don't see them in great detail. I mean, we do get them in some books and whatever other stuff, but the fact that we don't like get a definitive case study of what it's really like, we have to fill in gaps. But so we can't confirm or deny what that experience might be like. But I think that when I was a kid, I also was like, what? Anakin's too old. But as an adult, I realized that he was too old. I realized that I realized that his attachments really did mess things up. And I think there's a big difference between attachments and having positive, healthy relationships. I don't think no attachments is what ruined like the prequel era Jedi. I think it was the attachment, ironically, to perfection. And I think striving for no attachments is actually a really good thing for the Jedi to do, given that their role in the galaxy. But I think that they need to, like, when the Jedi are at their best, it's when they're understanding that perfection is not attainable, but they should approach their relationships with people outside of the Jedi Order with a little bit of care to not get attached and possessive, and like that kind of like the kind of Anakin attachment that he had to Padme, which was very unhealthy. Clearly, it did cloud his judgment. All that stuff was right, and I think being a Jedi is an enormous responsibility and sacrifice.
I think this is sci-fi fantasy in some ways, so it's like easy for us to be like, oh, there's this like perfect version of a Jedi that grows up that doesn't have this like
no, there's not perfectionism. No.
1 second. Okay. So I mean, it's like what we know about actually raising human children and babies, like 3-year-olds and stuff. Like, we can say like in the world of Star Wars that you can like there's a certain amount of there's like attachment that's needed for child rearing and to develop into the like not sociopaths, right? Like, it's like you need to like hug your baby, coddle your baby, like show them physical affection and love and like real like attachment and love. That's like they're reliant on that love that like is needed, right? During like these like definitive moments. And if we're talking about like an alternative to that, where that's like we're like we're taking that away from them so they're not relying on attachments. It's like these types of relationships are part of like healthy emotional development. And this idea of like sanitized version of like I have relationships, it's like, but like you have to get to them young or else they get attachment. It's like, to me that feels like like let's parent them badly so that they develop into like detached, but like having, I was like, you don't develop healthy emotional people if you get to them too young. Like you need them to be attached, and then later on you can help them like within the realm of already emotionally like developing, you can help them like detach and help them like find more meaning with healthy relationships, whatever. Point is, like, Grogu's a baby, and you're basically saying like, let's take away his father figure so that he can do this like sanitized Jedi training with Luke Skywalker. And like, what?
No. I don't think that's. I think you're assuming that these kids are just like not
Well, we don't
super
know.
special.
We don't know.
Well,
We
no,
don't
we do
know.
know that Jedi are force sensitive, and that,
Yeah.
and like the way I think about it is like a force user. Imagine you're like a child force user. Like you don't have control over your abilities. You're freaking your family out. You're hurting yourself. You're like this ball of like you're not. It's not just like taking a normal case kid and making them go through all this stuff and whatever. Like I think right now Luke training Grogu is doing the bare minimum right now to protect Grogu from himself and others, because Grogu has these powers, because force sensitive, like it must be so scary to be a force sensitive child, especially born into a non-force sensitive family. And you have like, you are a danger. Things can go really badly if you don't develop relationships in a certain way and have a kind of curated, and it sucks. I think having force abilities is a liability. Like I think it would really suck to be born with force abilities in the Star Wars universe, because things can go so wrong because you have so much power that your emotions can influence. Like it would be so easy. I think it'd be so much easier to fall to the dark side. And so the Jedi are not just taking like random kids or, whatever. This is not Grogu's a special case is what I'm saying. And so it sucks for Grogu, but like he there does have to be a little bit more like mindfulness around how he develops. And like I think it would be
That's what
fine
I'm
if he goes
saying
with
is I'm
Mando.
disagreeing with that tenet. I disagree that taking away that type of affection and attachment creates someone with a healthier
I'm not
view
saying
on
that.
it.
I'm not saying
No.
that I'm not saying that that's necessarily what creates a healthier situation. I'm saying like it's
Or
tough
less
because
dangerous one, by the way. I don't think it creates a less
I
dangerous.
think it depends on the case and the type of attachment. Right now, I think Luke is giving Grogu the opportunity to go back to Mando, now that it seems like he has given Grogu a baseline of
Right.
enough control over himself, that he's not just, that he has enough control over his abilities, which Mando can't help him with, unfortunately. And I think that was important. We already saw in Mandalorian, Grogu start to get into dangerous situations because he couldn't control his force abilities. And so I think it was important.
I was just going to say what Cutting Floor was going to say. Is like, okay, yeah, he's also an infant and he's giving him a choice, quote unquote, a choice.
Yeah, I agree that. See, that's the problem I have with this, is not no attachments. I think no attachments is a good idea for the Jedi, and I think it would be too painful for them to have memories of their family and everything if they're defending the galaxy and trying to make and defending and doing all the stuff that they want to do as Jedi. And I think they don't have to be Jedi. Like Ahsoka doesn't have to be. I think holding the Jedi as like becoming a Jedi as like a gold standard because you just have to become a doctor and a Jedi or whatever is more of the problem, and that Jedi should be more self-selective maybe. And it shouldn't be assumed that all like religious or force sensitive people have to become Jedi with a capital J. I think that I forgot my train of thought, but it's okay. I think the problem is just the way that this episode and the way that it came off as being such like a forced choice. Like I think that's what felt placed in this. It wasn't. I think you'd been fine if it were just Luke teaching Grogu about making sure that he's not getting attached to the man. Or Grogu's an infant. I know it's difficult. It's difficult, but I support no attachment for the Jedi in terms of being constantly mindful that they're not becoming jealous and possessive and that kind of thing. Even if they're not perfect, we know in the High Republic that can go, Jedi struggle with that all the time. Even Obi-Wan struggles with that. You know, it's kind of always a matter of pulling, like trying to keep yourself evenly balanced, just like we do here on Earth, that who are not Jedi. And the problem I had with the episode was just that binary. I mean, it felt like a forced, like this or this. I think I would have been completely fine if it were just another teaching of being mindful of your feelings and whatever. So I don't even know how to I don't know how to take it. I mean, if Robo Luke had a more inflection in a specific way, that may have guided me a little bit more, but I feel like it was such a flat like thing that it's easy to jump to conclusions one way or the other. I don't know. James, you hate this.
No, I just firmly disagree that there's a reality in which you could take a huge amount of children and take away their parental figures and create healthy, morally uplifted people that are enforcing the galaxy when they don't have like a sense of, child rearing that speaks to their like. I think that we're getting hung up with this idea of attachment because we're applying it to adults and not children. Like children.
Well, a lot of
develop
Jedi parents give up their children because they don't know what to do with them because,
Yeah.
like,
And
a lot
I
of them
think what would be ideal is if there was Jedi school or boarding school or something like that, in which they had healthy relationships with their parents and they were guided on how to have relationships with their parents and with their families. But they were like, but those parents were still allowed to be part of their children's life, and they were able to like have that relationship of being able to create family and create attachments and understand love, but understanding an emotional maturity that doesn't become possessive, doesn't become jealous, etc. Those things can be taught, but they don't have to be. I think you get actually a different result.
Healthy families. Like there are so many. I feel like that would go. I don't know. I just don't understand the concept of like healthy families that would be on board with this like a whole supportive, like whatever, like thing that to me is like a super rare occurrence.
Here's where we get to what the problem that I've always had with the Jedi is that this is like a square peg into a round hole, just like many dogmas are. And it's like this idea of a Jedi is like built up, but in reality it doesn't work for like most people. And because these are mortal, human beings, we'll call them, right? They're human beings that struggle with real, like they're not like programmable Jedi robots. Like, and it's like we're trying to like it's always like a journey of trying to get to this reach of like perfection of Jedi. And so to me, it's like I wish that Luke, and I guess this is what we're seeing. We're seeing Luke starting to toy around with this idea, and this is why it never like surprised me that he ultimately fails, because this is not this the whole idea of like this becoming a Jedi in some ways is so. It's the more that we learn about it, the more it becomes like almost an impossible task, that it's almost like futile.
As
it's
it should be.
Like maybe we should just explore the Force instead of like trying to say like I'm trying to become this specific type of.
Which
like,
I think that's what Grogu is probably going to do, and what he's giving Grogu the option to do, and what Ahsoka does, and what many Force users do. Being a Jedi is a very specific sect of people. Like not everyone who's religious or becomes a priest. Like that should be a very specific. Not everyone should do that, and will do that.
Right. So I don't know, the Jedi thing. I want them to explore that. I like it when they cast away and they like make it, they make it less sacred than it's been portrayed. Because in many ways, I like disagree with like the Jedi Order from the prequels.
They're doing a shitty job because they had formed an attachment to the Republic.
No.
Yes, they were attached to their political power. Like I think it's so ironic that they were trying to like, I don't know. I will never exonerate the prequel era Jedi Council because they had the most attachments of all. Like it was an attachment to like this ideal of something that they should not have been. Being a Jedi is not for everyone, not even Force users. I think it was the intense. I don't know. I think Anakin's intense attachment was a massive problem, but I think the Jedi Council just drove him further into his attachments by being so hard on him, because having like that doesn't mean you have. I don't know, they should have had more compassion with him to work through these things. It's not about having a perfect score. And I don't think Jedi have to be taken from their family, or that their families have to have given them up, or which a lot of families do leave their children on the Jedi temple steps in many, stories, because what do you do when you have like a magical child who's like killing your killing your cats and everything? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if the answer is abandon your baby on the steps of a spooky
Right,
space
but
wizard's
well,
cathedral,
yeah,
but
of course. I mean, no one. I don't think anyone would advocate for abandoning your child. But the point is, what happens when you are this child that no one wants to touch because you have these like ridiculous powers and you are dangerous and no one wants to touch you, and no one knows what to do with you. They're too scared to like handle you because you have all this stuff that they don't know how to understand and train you in. And there are a lot of like stories I think in canon, but it doesn't even matter. There are a lot of situations in which Jedi find babies that have been abandoned, and
yeah.
because no one wanted to deal with them, and so they take them in and teach them how to tame their powers and teach them how to use the force and let it flow through them and become,
Yeah.
like Buddhist, whatever, become like one with everything.
Right.
And they will always have to be a little bit more careful. And doesn't mean no relationships ever, depending on the era of Jedi you're looking at, but
Yeah.
they do have to be mindful so that because they can do, they are susceptible, and their susceptibility comes with also a great deal of power. So it's not just like harmless susceptibility. It's like if they're not also have a baseline of control and all this other stuff, shit can go really wrong. Like it's a liability to be force sensitive. It sucks.
Yeah.
But anyway, we do see in the High Republic that the Jedi, like Padawans, do have like a lot of fun together, and they do feel like a family, and they have like bake-offs, and they have like obstacle courses, and they run around, and they grow up like together, and
Right.
like ostensibly have that sort of closer knit whatever upbringing where
Yeah.
they're just raised by an alternative family.
It's interesting to view this discussion in the context of Grogu, though. So I'm interested. It seems cruel in many ways for him to have to in many ways give up Mando from his life, and I think that's how we read it. I mean, Justin, did you feel like it just made like
Don't drag me into this. you all keep going. Don't drag me into this.
Well, I'm just curious because you felt like it seemed like you had an opinion. Like when you saw Luke like give out that opinion, did that feel like was your opinion like, oh, Luke is being very wise right now, or did it seem like, oh, dude, Luke, what are you doing? Like that's my I don't know.
Yeah, no, for me with the choice, it really feels like he read a textbook on how to be a Jedi,
Right.
and this was chapter 1. And I mean, clearly, this is me being sarcastic with all this, but it's you read chapter 1. The first thing it says, you are either a Jedi or you are not.
Right.
And going back to him having never really taught anybody, has never been taught how to teach anybody, was questionably taught himself,
Right.
in a way, not for
Right.
very
Yeah.
long, not in a Jedi temple kind of a thing. He's I just chalk it up to him just not knowing what he's doing.
Right.
And he's going to
Right.
face these consequences. This is the beginning of him making the same mistakes of the original Jedi. It's the original Jedi. Well, I mean, the prequel Jedi Council, the Height had become this, kind of corrupted, misguided thing that in their own bright light that saw themselves as, this is the way. I didn't mean to do that. This is the way. And it failed. And he's trying to pick it all up again, which is kind of why Ahsoka's kind of sitting in the back going, maybe you'll see me again.
Yeah.
We'll see how this goes with you. I already can tell. You know, when she said you remind me of your father in so many words. How she
Yeah.
said you remind me. I was kind of almost like, oh, not too much, because that's
Right.
that's that's
Yeah,
all
I
I
was
took
trying
it
to
as a
figure out
nice
what
thing.
prompted.
I thought it was
I
a
trying to
nice
figure out what
thing.
prompted that specifically, and
Yeah.
what Luke was saying.
Because
What
he
do you
had
think?
said his heart's not in it, and she said you're so much like your father, or which yeah, it was. I thought that was endearing because it's Ahsoka seeing one of her best friends, an
Yeah.
attachment
Yeah.
that she had in Luke.
See, I don't
Again,
think
kind of thing.
that's an attachment Ahsoka had. I think I don't think
No,
she was attached. I don't think
I think she was
I think it's all a
attached with which
spectrum.
was
I think it's all a
I think
spectrum. She wasn't
I think it's a
possessive and jealous of
spectrum.
Anakin.
But do
No,
you think
not
is that how you're interpreting the word attachment? Is
Yes.
possessive? I disagree with that assessment.
I know.
Of that
That's why
word.
I think. That's why I'm saying is like when people are talk about no attachments, everyone has a different like connotation. And when I'm talking about it, I mean the kind of attachment that Anakin had to Padme, which was a possessive, jealous,
Yeah.
like, and his mother. He had an attachment like that to his mother too, where he
and that's a
was,
ne- and that,
where he would drop everything to like, and you simply, if you are going to be a Jedi, like it's probably better that you don't have the position of being a Jedi and being called upon to defend the galaxy and do all this stuff that Jedi are called on to do if you don't also have attachments, like, or if you have like attachments that matters to that much. I don't think having attachments is bad at all. I think attachment just
yeah,
of emotional bonds to a select few that consciously or like unconsciously translate to prioritization of those few people. And it's natural. It's how families like take care of each other. But if you're a
Yeah.
Jedi whose purpose is to keep the peace in the galaxy, you're going to run into issues if you're trying to like save everyone and you have and then you decide that you want to save your family first, or like you have all the and you remember like you want to check in on all your friends first and whatever, like, yeah,
right.
that's a
And I
problem.
think
But
and I think
yeah.
perhaps that could have been a more clear definition from the Jedi Order to say attachment's cool. This kind of attachment,
Yeah.
this
Unhealthy
negative,
attachment.
unhealthy attachment, possession, which was kind of mentioned in a couple things. Possession
Yeah.
is the thing. No, I absolutely think that
So
Ahsoka had an attachment to Anakin. I don't think a
yeah,
romantic
likewise.
attachment. I don't think an attachment of like, oh my god, I'm going to put you above everything else. Had she not, though, she would have not have fought for him for so long, and I think is still continuing to fight for him. She would have given up, or not given up. Given up in the sense of like, oh, okay, well. And the fact that she had this attachment probably was a big reason, besides the other political issues and moral issues that she had with the Jedi Order. This was one of them. Like, I can't not romantically be attached to my to Anakin, but like I can't care for this
See, care
in
and
the
attachment
way
are
that
not. I don't.
I think I feel like
I think if she
caring
were
for something
attached to Anakin in a way that prioritized Anakin's whatever her relationship with Anakin, then she would not have even survived to this day. She would have like been drawn into the Anakin orbit. She would have not dueled with it. Like things would have been.
I think she was a smarter person, though. She was just smarter with this stuff.
I think she had, and like the Revenge of the Sith novelization talks about how Obi-Wan knows that he's not supposed to have attachments or whatever, but he does know that he acknowledges that he does kind of feel attachment to Anakin, and that he knows that Anakin also, like they have like loyalty to each other, that like Jedi are supposed to be a little bit more neutral, and he recognizes that he has that kind of loyalty with Anakin and vice versa. But it just the mere existence of that feeling should not be the problem, and it is not the problem. The problem is not meditating on that and not coming to a conclusion that still makes you do the right thing in the end. And Obi-Wan still did that. So like Obi-Wan did actually have attachments, and he felt attached to Anakin, but at the end of the day, he still like he wrestled with it. Like it was hard for him. And so this is not to say that the Jedi are going to be perfect at this. It was hard for him. It was really hard for Obi-Wan at the end of his, Anakin relationship. It was really hard for him to choose the light, and it was really hard for him to not, but still, and I think Ahsoka had a lot of that as well. And I think Luke didn't have that as much, even though his father's Vader, like that's someone that he met as an adult. Like his uncle and aunt were gone; they're out of the picture. He never had to worry about going back for them; they're gone. That was conveniently, we never had to confront that. His new family is like his new family. Like that's different. He was already developed by Uncle Owen and Aunt
Mhm.
Beru, and they're gone. So, yeah, attachments, you can, it's not a problem to have attachments, but I think it is important for Jedi to constantly just be mindful of the role that these attachments are playing in their lives and decision making. And that's what
So
it comes
final
down to.
judgment, Xanthe, did Ahsoka have attachments? Yes or no?
Yes, because everyone does.
Yeah, I think that's what Justin's saying though. It's like she had definitely had an attachment to Anakin.
Yeah, but that
Like,
doesn't mean one
the-
should still strive for no attachments or like to reduce attachments or to avoid
Right.
attachments.
I think the whole attachment thing was just the idea to not have them or to distance them from so far was a major part
Yeah.
of the downfall of the Jedi Order, in my opinion.
I think that's
No,
the
because I
issue
think
here
they
is that
interpreted
they
the
don't.
word of the. It's like interpreting the word
was
of the
they're-
Bible.
they're-
Is like you can. There's so many
Oh,
different
yeah.
ways you can interpret it, and so the prequel
Oh,
era took it to like a really specific meaning. But that in itself, no attachments.
yeah.
It can be approached
it's-
in a different way.
So this just brings me
Yeah.
back to the whole thing that we've been talking about, which is like Grogu's choice. And there is a version where Luke allows Grogu to like accept the Mandalorian thing or whatever and like be part of Din's life and have a healthy version of an attachment to Din.
And I think that's what he's gonna do.
Yeah, but like Din shows up and like they're like, get out of here, like
No,
they're
they
not
didn't
even
say-
like
They didn't say that. They gave
they
Ahsoka
Din
gave him a
a choice
choice.
and said you're not, and like
A very heavy-handed choice. Again, very like you could go say hi to him and ruin everything that we're working for.
I thought it was so neutral. She was like, "Are you doing it for
No, she
you?"
was-
And he realized that he
No,
was
are you
doing it for
No,
him.
she was.
He was
no,
doing
she
it for
didn't want.
him.
None of them wanted him to see that. That's why R2-D2 is in on it. He took Mando to Ahsoka because he knew. Okay, this kid. I was warned about this guy in the helmet. I can't take him to the kid.
right.
And when Ahsoka even like she brought him to him, but she was like, well, hold on now. Do you
Yes.
really want to do this? He's like, yeah, I do. And as he's walking, she's like, no, really, hold on.
But what did she do? She asked him, "Are you doing this for yourself?"
Right.
No, but
in her wise manner of getting him to make the choice to not do it.
Right,
Without
because
saying
he was
her
already
physically
struggling to
having to stop
detach
her.
because Grogu missed him. But Grogu, see, the timeline is tricky here because
Mhm,
why would Grogu be any more ready by the end of this episode? And so I guess we're supposed to assume that a lot happened in the montage, which is why the whole montage thing just can't stand by the whole montage thing because it's so vapid. But ostensibly, before the montage, Grogu was not ready. So like to distract him while he is still trying to gain control over himself would be a distraction. Like, so she wasn't saying never come back. She was just saying like right now it's hard for him. Like, you got to leave your kid at camp because he's doing some important camp things that are important for his future.
Yeah.
And by the end of the episode, he's gone through the montage and he's ready.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Whatever.
I don't think
And
any
so-
of them are saying never, ever, 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 ever see Grogu again. I'm just saying at that moment, she really did not want him to be there.
Yeah, because Grogu,
There-
it wasn't safe for
Right.
Grogu.
I'm just saying that I didn't feel it was neutral. That's all. I think
Okay,
she
that's
presented
fair.
herself neutral because that's Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Trying to be older, wiser Ahsoka and not so like, let's just jump right into the thing kind of a thing. But like, I feel like
Do you not think it was a good idea for Mando to leave at that time?
Okay. Yeah, I do actually agree. I mean, in retrospect and thinking about that particular moment, like especially if Grogu's on a journey, if it's important for Grogu to be away from this and to refocus on his thing, whatever. It's like it's kind of like saying like, hey, we just started our math lesson today. Maybe like mom and dad like not come in and like interrupt with like, hey, you forgot your lunch or whatever. But like, I guess the bigger issue is like, I don't know why there's a choice at the end of this episode at this moment. Why does there need to be a choice given to Grogu right now? Like, just continue to train him.
Yeah.
And continue to train him. And then like, I don't understand why there's being a choice being presented to Grogu. Like, are you in this or not? I don't
agree.
get it. I don't understand other than that. This is my point is like, why the only reason why it seemingly is there is because it's trying to move the story forward where like Grogu will leave his training and go with Din or something, right? It's like Grogu is going to make the choice to stop training and be a Mandalorian or something. I don't know. Point is, it doesn't seem like anything that is actually serving his training right now, because it's like, otherwise it's playing into exactly what we're saying, Xanthe, which is like, it makes it sound like Grogu is like literally picking being a Jedi over ever seeing Din again or having Din be a part of his life or anything. It really feels like that. Like, like it doesn't feel like Luke is saying, like Luke could just sit down and be like, all right, here's the deal. Like your father, or figure Din, like you really can't attach to him in a meaningful way right now because we're really trying to get through this like part of your trauma and focus on your skills. But I promise you will be able to see him one day in a healthy way. But you have to understand that we're going to have to try to be like release a sense of possession and a sense of jealousy and a sense of like over attachment to him in a way for you to focus on your training. However, he will be able to continue to be a meaningful part of your life if you choose him to be. But that will, as long as you create a balance between your usage of the Force and your relationship with Din. Like you can sit down and explain that, like to him,
Well, the
and
thing
like
is, yeah.
and you can move in that direction. But instead, Luke sits him down and goes, "You either put on this gift that your father gave you, or you choose this lightsaber. No, here it is. Line in the sand, kid. Like make your choice." It's kind of it's not an
Yeah.
appropriate
Well,
decision to make as a teacher or a trainer or anything like that, especially within the realm of this conversation. Because this isn't actually a healthy way to view the relationships in your life, is that they're completely off limits to you when
right.
you're when you're choosing your Jedi training, right?
Here's the thing, though. This wouldn't be the first time that like Luke is presented on screen in a way that it can be super misinterpreted, or that we're not getting the full picture. Like just think of The Last
Yeah.
Jedi when we see him, about to strike down, about to kill Kylo Ren, and then there is like he snaps out of it afterward. Like here we have to consider that like the episode cuts short right there for a reason. Like we don't know what happens afterward, and we are judging Luke as being completely clear-minded. And again, it doesn't help that it's Robo Luke. It doesn't help that the way that this episode is structured, none of that is working in its favor at all. Like the montage doesn't convey that Grogu really advanced that much. Again, it just
I realize why Cad Bane's voice sounded different is because they used all their robot budget on Luke. And
we don't got time for this. We don't got time for this.
But the point is, like, all of that is like we don't know that like the second after we see that glimpse of Luke doing something bad, that Luke's gonna come to and be like, wait, like we don't know that that's how the next episode starts. And so
no, we don't. But I will say it makes me feel all weird in my stomach right now, and I'll wait for them to make that feeling go away, in the future. But right now I'm like, ooh, I don't like that. And that's not Luke. That's not like how Jedi are supposed to be. And this is not good training or whatever, I don't feel good about it,
I mean, it's difficult to it's difficult to even analyze the situation because also of the fact that the prior work done on Grogu has been Grogu as an object, not a subject. So it's just super weird to watch like Robo Luke talking to the puppet who has never said anything, who is just the cute pet, like as if like, and we see him through the eyes of Mando, basically. Like there's not enough, like we don't understand enough about any of the characters' intentions here to even be like, all we can do is project like what we hope is the case. It's just there's not enough. They're not giving us enough to like. I just feel like it's not. And again, we just have fill in gaps of what happens after the screen cuts and what the inflection in his voice would be and what Grogu wants and what's going to happen, and that it's not just going to be just like someone in chat said, just going to be like a quick like a lesson, a pulse check or something. Like they could turn all that on our heads. Who knows? But yeah, I had a problem. Like if we were to take it at face value, I don't like that the fact that suddenly there's this choice that seems premature. When I'm talking, when I was going off of on my attachments rant, that was like not for this specific moment because I don't know what the fuck to make of this specific moment. It's such a weird like thing to have here, and I don't like I don't like that. But in general, like it was more general thoughts about.
It was very meta.
It
feels very much like to the fans. Is Grogu going to stick around, or is he going to go and choose Din?
Yeah.
And it's like weird that we're like, it's weird that they're using Luke Skywalker, who deserves his own arc of discovering how to train Jedi. He deserves his own. I don't think Luke Skywalker should be assigned to like device for other characters. Like, he was the device in the end of the Mandalorian. He was like the God in the machine, right? He's like he was like the thing that came out and saved everybody at the end, which was awesome. It was wonderful. But he was like, he doesn't get his own. That doesn't help the story of Luke Skywalker, right? And same thing here. It's like Luke is just like this. Like he's like an NPC. Luke Skywalker is an NPC that gives you the choice. Will you choose Mandalorian or Jedi? But in some ways it doesn't make a lot of sense, or we don't get like big picture Luke's journey and his development of Luke Skywalker. I feel like deserves more development of his own.
Yeah, and I honestly want that to happen in books, like more than any other character. Just don't give us more. I don't want this development to happen on screen with this Robo situation, with this AI Luke. Just give us some great books.
Cast him.
Yeah, I'd rather books than recast, actually, because
I know.
It would be weird.
We've seen enough Luke, Anyway,
we've been going for almost 3 hours.
I know, it's insane. But this is the most important, pivotal episode of Star Wars for the future of Star Wars, I think, that we've seen yet. Like, there's so many little seeds that I think will just play them, and this decision with Grogu. I feel like if there was one thing that we should have gone back and forth and had a little bit of a group therapy with, it was this episode, So I think
I'm sorry your tummy feels funny, James.
Yeah, I want my Luke Skywalker to have learned some crap about what happened with the Jedi. It seems like he's just doing some of the old stuff again. And I want him to be a more woke Jedi, But I guess that's why he ends up looking like Methuselah on Skellig Michael and eating and drinking milk and stuff, So and I love that version of Luke Skywalker. So yeah.
Final comment. I have a suggestion for the end of next week's episode review.
Oh.
I'd like to know what you want to hear musically, sonically for the upcoming Obi-Wan show. Sounds good.
I'll tell you one thing right now. We're going to hear Duel of the Fates because Darth Maul is going to be a major character in this show.
We're all going to Disneyland.
Because Darth Maul is definitely going to be in that show.
Oh, was that the bet? I forgot. We had a
That was a bet. If Darth Maul appears...
I didn't bet this on stream.
That's right. We did it after stream. And
I'll put it out there right now that I am buying a one day, and we'll actually content create. I'll make sure I take some video if we do this.
I'm not going to content create.
I will.
Okay.
Maul, if Maul shows up in Kenobi, I'm buying a Disneyland ticket to Galaxy's Edge for the three of us. And it's on me. And I know how expensive that is. Mm-hmm. I know exactly I know what I'm signing myself up to. That's how little I think it will happen, but that's how much I want it to happen. Okay.
And James said it would count if we get his what is it? If his name is mentioned. Wait. What were the terms? If we see him. It doesn't count if his name is. It doesn't count if his name is mentioned.
Right.
We have to see him.
I'll even give you his hand with the lightsaber igniting at the very final clip of the show.
Yes,
right?
but we have to know that it was him. It can't just be one of many fan theories.
Hold up. You know what? I think I did give this one thing. The only thing that I will not be okay is if it is a Rebels reenactment flashback.
Why? Oh.
Because it's got to be fresh Maul. It's got to be like a new scenario that we haven't seen him in. Okay.
Not a live action version of something that Maul did in Rebels.
Yeah, that doesn't feel good to me. That feels like that's not what I want. I want to see Darth Maul like on screen, somehow. I don't know how that's gonna happen. I want him to fight Darth Vader is what I want him to do. But
what if it's a flashback, but we didn't see it in Rebels? You don't want flashback, okay? Not a flashback.
Want fresh Maul.
Well, okay. We'll think about it. Think about it for next stream.
Want fresh Maul.
Okay.
Hot off the tattoo parlor.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone who's Who
Who
stuck with?
stuck around for 3 hours?
Grogu was rescued by Din, and finding a Jedi was a way for him to go back home to be with his people, as he says. However, in the process of finding his home, his home became with Din. Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
I like.
I think he's not going to be a Jedi. Don't
me
say
neither.
that, Matthew. I want my Disneyland
No.
ticket.
I want my Disneyland.
Yeah, none of us do either. This is a wish. You ever heard of The Secret? Right? You got to put that
Stop.
stuff out in the universe.
Oh my
okay.
God! Don't get me
No.
started.
It's on my
That's-
vision board.
Oh.
All right. Well, on that note, see you all next week
Yeah,
to talk
final
about the
episode
finale
for a
Woo!
while.
of Book of Boba Fett. Yeah,
Bet
wild.
we'll see more Boba Fett next week.
Maybe.
I hope so.
Or perhaps.
No Boba Fett next week. He's completely
None.
out of the episode.
No lines. Completely silent. All right.
Hey.
Outro music.